everything's working okay.
I've got it up on my screen.
Okay. All working good. Let's just get a link out there for the actual video.
Yeah, I'll have to retweet it.
Technical difficulties, we don't know what we're doing. Right, okay, so the link is now out there. I think there's people. Visuals good our end. Who's Rover? Is that someone we know? Yeah, okay, must be. Right, okay, so we are live, it's all working, all good. Let's find the actual YouTube video so we can actually see what it is we're going through tonight. So joining me on the Kid Street Noise YouTube channel is, we have got Jack. What's your last name, Jack? I've only ever actually referred to you as Jack Rovers because obviously we spoke so much in the last month, so...
I am Jack McGrew.
Yeah. And any Twitter handles you want people to know about?
No.
Potentially no. Yeah, you'll usually find Jack replying to either certain things that I've posted or people disagreeing with me and kicking off with me. He'll usually be one in the background sticking up for me. We've also got Katie from Katie Talks Rovers that I'm sure you've heard from on TikTok, Twitter. What else is your usual social media stuff? It's mostly TikTok and Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah, multitude on Twitter, yeah, 100%.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Katie. And we've, of course, got Glen Mullen, who we probably should have had as a guest on Kid Street Noise a long time ago, but it never actually got round. We never actually spoke that much, have we, Glen?
No, I've never been very photogenic, so I do different stuff.
Yeah, just like the speaking side of things. It's getting you to stop once you started, that's the issue. Yeah. Okay, so tonight we are going to watch through the Rudy Gestede interview. The whole idea is that, I know some of us have watched it already, but I know I haven't watched it and want to try and analyse all the things that he has said, potentially come up with counter arguments around the things that he said, and maybe just argue with him. No, we're not going to argue with him. We're going to actually listen to his points of view and see if we can get some sort of middle ground and obviously counter anything that he's not being 100% truthful about. Let's just put it that way. So I'm going to start the video now. Everyone ready? Okay.
Sure that a lot of the fans from Blackburn will be very, very interested to listen to our guest.
Because obviously the Venkies haven't been at a game in a long, long time. Why do you think the Venkies still want to own Blackburn?
The thing I would say is maybe if we communicate a bit better, the fan will understand that maybe the plan was not to spend money in January.
How do you bring it back? Because you need the fans back on side.
Don't lie to them.
No, that's...
But don't lie to them because they work it out very, very quickly. They know.
How are you going to change Blackburn? Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of No Tippy Tappy Football. Different episode today, kind of. I'm excited, Sam.
Yeah, I'm glad we diversified with our guests. It's a good decision, isn't it? Like, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of the fans from Blackburn will be very, very interested to listen to our guest. Like, so we're absolutely pleasure to have Rudy Gestede with us. Rudy, who's the...
I don't want to start with all fashion tips. I'm not the most fashionable myself, but the shoes and the sock combo isn't going well with a white suit. No. No.
It's a hell of a place to start.
I know, yeah, but I don't know, yeah. Probably a 4 point to start
What is
with,
the
but
title,
come on,
if you
Rudy,
don't
sort
mind
yourself
to get it
out,
right?
smart.
Director of Football, is it?
Head of Football Operations.
Head of Football Operations. So
Okay, see.
another oversee to try and get Blackburn Rovers back in the Premier League, hopefully, I would imagine.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Difficult job though, but you know.
It is, but it's enjoyable so far.
So it's nice to see such a young man in charge of that position, like I mean. So
Yes, because you just asked what Rudy's age was, and he tells us he's 36, and I immediately gasped.
I was still playing when I was 36, so
Do you think people are unaware of how young he is and how, and like people are usually shocked by how inexperienced he is when people tell him.
I think the Twitter reaction when it was initially kind of announced that he was the head of football operations, of the many memes that I saw, my favourite one was the Father Tech one, saying Mrs. Doyle, like, what do you mean you let Rudy Gestede be the head of football operations? I think people don't realise that he retired.
Yeah, I think sometimes though, just to play devil's advocate, they said you couldn't win anything with kids as footballers, and you look at Eddie Howe as a football manager. If you've got the credentials and you're good enough, then you're old enough. So yeah, it's as a young director of operations of football, as they say, the proof that they put in him is going to be good, but or he's going to be bad. But I wouldn't use his age against him.
Yeah, I just think we sort of spoke a lot about his experience, and obviously I had the massive argument with Simon Jordan on TalkSport about that and whether it was like gonna almost like suit that job because of his inexperience. But I think the fact that people are so shocked about it probably doesn't start him off with like the best reputation if people are going to tell him at 36 years old that he's in such, especially in charge of such a big club like Rovers. I'm probably pausing it way too early. Let's see what he actually has to say. Let him defend himself first before I start laying into him.
Yeah, lovely position to be in. I hope it.
Yeah.
I would say on that point, had he been Zinedine Zidane or Raul, that pulling power, but we're talking about Rudy Gestede here. So a slightly different profile than if he did a big name at 36.
Yeah, we had a slight chat before, didn't we, about him being statistically. I don't want to go into that just yet.
Saying it, Rob, saying it.
Yeah, statistically the worst Premier League footballer of all time. So yeah, maybe like you're right, Glenn. If he was potentially the second worst footballer of all time in Premier League, like Emmanuel Dennis, then maybe we have a bit more respect for him. But no, we have to. Again, he's not had enough time in the job to prove himself in that role. But I just think with that initial shock from most people hearing about it, that people aren't going to be most impressed with him. Let's get back to the video.
It goes well for you, of course. As always, you will have to face the ups and downs at the football club, and well, obviously we've all been, listening to the sort of criticism that goes Blackburn's way. So that's a difficult scenario to deal with.
So we should say as well that Rudy's come on and he said that we can ask him anything. So we are going to ask him anything. Also, your former Cardiff, Blackburn, Villa, Middlesbrough striker, head of operations out at Blackburn. Before we get into all of that, let's start with the question that we always start the podcasts with. Where have your paths crossed? Because I've got a date for you.
Oh, yes.
7th of August, 2011.
That's good research, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Does it jump out at you for any reason? I don't. It's a very...
I know why, but... Yeah,
okay. So that was your first game in English football, Rudy.
Really?
And you got an assist for Kenny Miller's winner as Cardiff beat Sam's West Ham.
Oh,
His first game in Championship, I think.
Yeah.
There we go.
Wow. Very good.
That's some link. Do you remember Sam that day?
Yes, I
West
remember.
Ham,
Because he was well known in France to be like a big coach in England. For my first game at West Ham against Sam, and West Ham was a big team, just went down from Premier League. So it was a good time for me, and I gave an assist to Kenny Miller. So it's perfect memories.
That was a big win.
Yes.
Because I think we only lost maybe 5 or 6 that season.
I think we lost against you in the playoff semi-final season. Yeah. So now you had a very strong team with the top players.
Right, before we get into the football, Sam, we've got to just say something at the top. You went viral yesterday. I got sent the viral reason 3 times off 3 different people. Do you know why you went viral yesterday?
Yeah, I got about 120 various different pictures of, obviously taking over from the Pope, of course. Which was quite bizarre when it started popping up. No, I've never had as much communication in one day since I've not been managing or coaching as I got yesterday. Like, so mates and people I've known for many, many years who I haven't heard from for a long, long time, which is the norm when you're not working, by the way. It drifts away, you know, the communication. Ping, ping, ping.
Yeah, I was just going to say his body language is like so uncomfortable when people are not talking about him. It's just really visible to me.
Do you not think he's like just so? I mean, a lot of people have called him from this interview that he seems very arrogant and very sure. But again, I'm not. You guys have watched? Have you both watched it, Jack and Katie?
I've seen about half of it.
I've only watched like a couple of snippets that they've released. I've not watched it all. But I think he does have that kind of like, maybe he doesn't mean to be like that, but he does come across quite arrogant.
Yeah. I mean, I always feel like defensive of footballers. Like when people say they've got swagger and they've got that attitude and stuff, they've probably grown up to being the best sports person in their school, in their team, all their life up to the age of 18. And when people are good at sports, it usually gets them high up in places at a young age. So I feel like they almost, not necessarily demand that respect, but I just feel like like you said, it looks very uncomfortable.
I don't think it helps that it has to be in my grandma's house when I have a little tray with cups on and tea coming out the saucers. He's a very tall guy. That he looks really uncomfortable. Looks like he's in economy class on Ryanair.
To be honest,
they could have got him a bigger chair.
I'm taller than Gestede, and an economy class in Ryanair isn't actually that bad. So, Ryanair, if you want to give us flights to Benidorm for the pre-season tour, then feel free. We'll happily accept that.
That's excellent media relations there, Rob.
Yeah, I'm taller than him, and I don't mind your seats.
Ping, ping, ping. So, you know, my smiley faces were going back all over the place, like I mean. So
my dad sent it me, and it said "till the end of the season?" ? And it was you in the full white Pope's robe with the hat and everything.
I don't know who thought of that one up, but it didn't. I didn't just get the one like I normally get. I got about 3 different variations.
Oh,
of that.
different outfits.
Yeah, different outfits. Yeah. You know, so.
Are you ruling yourself out?
I don't think there's much chance of that, is there?
Well, it made me laugh, and
but
of
course, memes. They are called memes, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right. I used to get quite a lot of them as a manager, but I started putting them up on the screen for the lads to have a laugh.
Brilliant.
I mean, there used to be one with I think it was Everton particularly, where when I'm dancing, they've put a big fat belly on me, like I mean, dancing away. I mean. You know, there used to be a few of me bashing Benitez. You know what I mean?
You've got to be able to laugh at yourself, haven't you?
So I like to put them up for the lads to have a laugh, like I mean, because it used to be. I used to find them quite funny, like I mean. So
yeah, gotta laugh.
It's amazing how quick people do it, though, isn't it?
Oh, isn't it? Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That
technology today, like I mean, it's just amazing these youngsters today what they can do so quickly.
Love it. Right, let's get into the football.
Absolutely, yeah. Championship.
Yes. Rudy, first of all, what does a head of football operations mean? Is it similar to a director of football? Does it cover more? Does it cover less? Can you tell everybody what do you do?
Okay, so I'm based in a training center with the first team, and I oversee. So it's a bit different than the director of football role because we've got the technical and sports science medical part with under our head of technical development, Adam Owen, and I'm overseeing the operation, administration side, kids, catering. I oversee the academy administration also, and the recruitment in the football club.
You just said catering?
Catering, yeah.
I've got a bone to pick with you then. You know, at the press box at Blackburn, you get no catering, no drinks, no nothing.
Really?
There's hot drinks, that's it. But I mean, I jest about the press food. I mean, I travel all over the country, and the difference in the facilities that Blackburn provide in terms of, if you compare it to Preston or Burnley, obviously your nearest rivals, it's worlds apart. I mean, I can go to a Doncaster in League 2 and they treat the press better.
Okay.
And it's not the press officer by any way. The staff are wonderful. I'm talking about when you get there and it's a cold night and you just want to sit and eat something and do your work. And I think I jest in that, and I know it sounds like a little thing, but I think for me, when I went to Blackburn, I think it demonstrates perhaps the wider issues that are going on at Blackburn. It's been a testing first season for you. Obviously, John Eustace left midway through.
Yes.
He doesn't seem at all embarrassed.
No, there's nothing from him, and from a fan, that it's embarrassing that that's even a conversation. You know what I mean? But it should be highlighted. Like it comes down again. You know, we've seen comments from different fans looking for like a match day experience. There is no experience.
Yeah, fully. And does it really, in the grand scheme of things, maybe matter that press aren't kind of looked after in the way that they used to? Otherwise, you could argue no, but it's like a cumulative effect of like this kind of gradual downgrading of everything about it. I think your point there, Rob, about being embarrassed is bang on, because his response of just really is like, I mean, hurry up and carry on with the rest of this interview, please. I've taken time out of my day to turn up, and I've spent the opening 5 minutes talking about memes with Sam Allardyce. I need to kind of, I don't know. He's not a great ambassador, is he?
I'd like to pick up on the catering strange role for operations, but I got some intel at the back end of March that Rovers had banned ham from the training ground. And so I thought, yeah, we'll check it out. So, I got in contact with the club to ask about why ham was banned from the training ground. And the initial response was they didn't know which employee ham was, which was a strange response from one of the company's club directors. But yeah, they have banned ham, and the actual original reason was, and I'll give it you word for word. We have first team nutritionist whose role is to collate menus aligned to training schedules and match preparation, who travels to every away game with the team. And so that was the reason given for banning ham from the training ground. But obviously, as Rudy Gestede looks after catering, that's one of his initiatives which he's implemented into the club this season.
Can you translate that for me, Glen? Because I did not understand what their rationale was.
So they banned basically the ham, the meat, pork. It was banned from the training ground, and Rudy looks after the catering. So when I challenged the club just to see if this is true, well, allegedly the nutritionist, obviously working along the guy who looks after the catering, believed it was in the best interest of the footballers, basically, to have no ham, pork on the menu.
Cool.
Yeah, interesting one. Interesting one. The only really this is like the first insight we've had of this, of like the standards inside that section being so poor. I remember like Elliot Jackson, he has like a favourite away game that he always like goes to and takes a picture of the pies there and says like, this is like a great place to go for press teams. And I remember once, I think Ryan Hildred might have tweeted him saying, is it better than the stuff at Rovers? And he put like no comment. And then after that, it was like every away game we went to, it was like, how's the food? Is it better than Rovers? And it was always no comment, which of course he's going to do press duties at Rovers. He needs to protect his reputation, protect those relationships. But the fact that someone like Natalie Pike, who's got like such great connections, will probably have told other people about the experience that she's had at Ewood, and Rudy's first thought is just be like, that's, and it's not like, yeah, I'm sorry you experienced that, it might have been a one-off and we'll try and improve it for next time. It's just, yeah, well, you get what you're given, basically. Oh, right, 7 minutes in, come on, we can do this, we can get through this.
This season.
That would have been a shock, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, we thought we were having a good season. He was around the playoff position. So obviously, I've been told that Derby were coming. I wanted to discuss with John. John had a discussion with the board, and he wanted to discuss with Derby for his personal reasons. And when the manager wants to discuss with the other club, the only thing you have to do is just prepare yourself for after John. So then he decided to leave, and we prepare ourselves to make sure we carry on with the project.
I think everybody's asking why, though, aren't they? Why, when it's a difficult question, you may not have the answer because you might not be able to do that. But why leave when you're near the playoffs and take over a club that's at the bottom would be was the big question.
Yes.
You know, and obviously if the personal reasons or whatever, obviously you can't disclose that. But you know, everybody was saying, well, why would you want to?
Yeah,
like,
that's the question I was asking myself.
me personally saying that it has to be something. There'd have to be something way beyond I'd expected to make me want to leave to go to a club, because we all want, if we've got any ambition, we all want to succeed. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
So my belief, I wasn't there when John has been appointed at the club. I was at the club as a working experience, but I wasn't part of the interview.
fine. Yeah.
So my belief was, when I've been appointed, is we've got a project for the club. We need to develop our young players from the academy. We, obviously, for the sustainability of the club, we cannot spend the money that Leeds or those big clubs are spending. So we have to be creative in the transfer window. And for all those reasons, we had a plan. And John was part of this plan because he's been very good since he joined the club in terms of winning success and getting the club to the playoff. The players have been fantastic too. So then we went through the first transfer window, broke some players. We think we had add value to the squad with quality players. Then we go through January, we start to have injuries. So January transfer window is a bit different because the clubs are waiting for those players who's going to be injured before they can release some players. So you're waiting on possibility targets. Are they available? Are they not? Sometimes they're available at the beginning of transfer window. They are not available anymore at the end of January. So we managed to bring 6 players, I think, in January. And
Were they short-term deals, most of them?
we had one long-term contract and loans, and short-term, 6-month contract or loan player, because that's just the market in January. You have to adapt. And then after that, John decided to leave. So I didn't have like massive communication with John. So I cannot tell you exactly why. The reason I know is just the personal reason.
Yeah, can we just pick up on that's the market in January? That's a sweeping statement. That might be Blackburn Rovers' market in January, but it's probably not the market of the other 91 football teams in the pyramid. You know, that we will have one permanent signing, we'll bring in some loan players, and we'll spend a couple of million in addition to the couple of million they spent in the summer. So to peddle that, well, that's just how it is in January. What we do know, it's difficult to sign players in January for all football clubs, but we were literally going round bargain bins. And when we look at what the club brought in January, we've brought a player that's not played for 12 months, one that can't get a game at a losing town that are on the verge of relegation, a bit of an unknown from abroad, which he could be good or he could be bad. So when we're looking at the standard of these players that we're bringing in, and we're looking at historical teams in playoff zones, and suddenly Bournemouth springs to mind when they went for it, and everybody was laughing, oh, they bought all these players. Well, they were laughing when they got promoted. So just the sweeping statement that he puts out there to suggest, to put into make people's brains that, well, it's always like this. We'll know that it's always like this at Blackburn Rovers, and I don't think that's reciprocal across the rest of the league.
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you have such a valid point. Like, it is just the norm. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like it's an easy window, but it's in the same things where we're leaving it till the end of the window to get people in. Plenty of clubs in the Championship recruit, whether that was loans, but the difference is they were some of them very much quality players. We don't seem to get quality.
Yeah, and like just to add on to Katie's point there, I don't necessarily mind short-term deals as long as they're going to make an impact short-term. Like, Emmanuel Dennis coming in when, like you said, he's not played since the previous April. He's going to take 6 weeks to get up to speed, so he's not going to make an impact. All our loan deals in the last 5 years, probably go back to COVID when Harvey Elliott and probably Van Heck the season after. Every loan deal has not impacted us positively in any way whatsoever. Probably like the last 3 seasons, they probably like detrimented the squad because we've had loan deals where they've had to play so many minutes and had to play so many appearances, and you've seen it like recently, like Ishmael's come in, he started playing academy players, and everyone's like, well, what about Cozy Adubre? Well, he wasn't good enough before he started playing the academy players, so why are people bothered about him now and wanting to see him now? That he's not the answer to our problems. But I know Woodrow potentially hasn't worked out, but getting an experienced player for 6 months, I think that's what the loan market's for. Your 5 loan players should be the best players in your team, unless you've got a star player already in the squad. But they should all be first names on the team sheet. And at the minute, all of our loan players are bench or not even that. They're not even in the team sheet.
Where do you stand on, if you're sat fifth in the table, fourth, fifth in the table, as Blackburn were in January, and again, I'm going to use Bournemouth as an example, when Rothwell wanted to go there, you're fifth, suddenly you're attractive. People want to come and play. Yeah, we'll go there. If you're a Premier League player, you know what? They're challenging up near the top ends of the table. I can go there. I can have 3, 4, 5 months, get in the team, put myself in the shop window for a nice move in the summer, or put myself in the shop window for a parent club. And you're looking to attract. When Bournemouth wanted Rothwell, they were looking to take somebody who's having a great season from us to push them to go up. We were in that position, and time again, as January comes, we've got into that position, and rather than shopping with ambition, we've gone bargain bins. And to be honest, had they bought nobody, we'd probably be in a better position, because in general, the business we've done in January over the last few seasons hasn't been to a positive to the club. It's been detrimental because we've dropped down the table.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think if you kind of round everything up that we've even just said, and even the way that he's delivered his perspective on it just speaks to the fact that it's another transfer window that we went into with no strategy. There wasn't really a plan, and that's why we're kind of fishing around at the end of the window. I think even to give some credit, there's some creative thought in there, but it's just that point of as you said, Rob, just go for something that works. Go for something that's proven to work for teams that are in fifth in the league. And that's, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories too early into this particular stream, but raises the question, doesn't it, of why do we take the most abstract route towards this really crucial window, especially when we're in a good position?
Yeah, Glen, you made a great point then about people wanting to join us. The best example of that was the January under Yondal Thomason, where we went into the World Cup second or third, I think it was, where we were playing delightful football. So it wasn't just we'd scraped ourselves up there and people might see a chance at promotion. Actual, genuine, talented footballers would have looked at that squad and gone, I'm going to play the best football I can play. Youngsters from Premier League teams that are playing out the back and high pressing football will have seen that and gone, I can go and play there for 6 months. And you never know, when I go back to my Prem team, I could go in the first team because I've shown that I can play to that standard. And that window, we signed Sober Thomas on loan. And I know we had the Lewis O'Brien and was Ethan Brierley that window as well on the final day. And I know we had those issues. And you just think, I know we're going to get into conspiracy theories of Rule F.1.8 and all that sort of stuff, but when you see how the positions we've been in going into a January window and then a squad coming out of that window, it can't just be making mistakes and poor planning.
It makes it questionable, a director of football operations for it makes that role very questionable. If I go back, to the early 90s when Kenny was here, Rovers went out and bought Duncan Shearer from Swindon. That guy was scoring goals for fun, and they didn't actually buy him to play him either. They bought him and to stop the other team scoring loads of goals, and in the end, it worked trumps for Blackburn Rovers to have Duncan Shearer on the books. He was a prolific goal scorer, but he got very, very little game time for our club. And ultimately, if you're going for a promotion, you need to be adding players who are hungry, who want to get on promotion. And again, I'll use Woodrow as an example. Low on confidence, not getting much game time in a team near the bottom of the league. Was that the best use of our money in January? I don't believe it was, and I've got nothing against the player. But winning's a bit of a habit, and as you've seen in the last 3 games, you get that momentum going, you get that buzz going with the players, and suddenly morale lifts on the pitch and the dressing room. And that's when they talk about profile of bringing people into a dressing room, you want people coming into a dressing room that are full of confidence, full of morale, full of bubbly, not somebody that's been sat on the shelf from last year's Christmas sales.
Close to his family.
Oh, just before you
but then
start again,
afterwards all that.
I was going to say there was a face that Sam was making, just with the tongue stuck out in there in the middle of Gestede's explanation, which just really did it for me.
Yeah, is he biting his tongue because he doesn't want to say anything and like put Gestede under the bus?
It's that kind of I don't know. It just seemed to be the face of the man that was really considering a lot of things that were being said at that moment and wondering what exactly the substance was.
Well, I mean, there's no way Sam Allardyce would have put up with January transfer windows like that. He was like a master strategist at getting the players that he wanted and looking 3-4 years ahead of who's out of contract, who can we get on the cheap, and building a squad around those players. So I know people spoke about him potentially coming back when Eustace left, but there's no way we'd put up with anything like that.
Yeah, agreed.
But it wasn't the reason. So I believe that's the reason was. And when you're in a playoff position, even if you've got some different reason that you want to leave, I believe as a competitor you should stay until the end of the season, and then we can assess the situation and see where we're going forwards. Are we aligned? Are we not aligned? That different discussion to have with every type of a head coach. But we didn't have time to have those discussions because then.
What month did Rudy refuse to play and put his transfer request in?
Good point.
He believes as a competitor he should stay to the end of the season. I'm sure he refused to play at Wigan away just in between Christmas and New Year. Is that the one?
Yeah, didn't he do the same at Borough as well?
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends in Borough. He's not very popular with them lot either.
He's talking about himself. You're putting. Oh no. Well, back to playing.
And he made his decision. Yeah.
Did you and him fall out before he went?
Sorry.
Did you have words or have arguments? I read online that both of you, your relationship kind of wasn't great at the end.
No, not at all. Seriously, he came to my office and said, all the best for the season, all the best for you. We didn't have any animosity together. I'm not saying we're best friends. Obviously, it's football, it's business. We have to work together. But no big complaint or nothing at all. Nothing this side, yeah.
Were you disappointed then? It seems like disappointed that he didn't stay to the end of the season.
Disappointed because he was doing well and we're fighting for playoff. I think the club was in a good position for the rest of the season. So obviously disappointed, but at the end of the day, you have to keep your emotion stable in football. And when someone wants to leave, he made this decision, so we have to deal with that.
There seems to be, well before you came, there seems to be this every season for Blackburn. Every season for Blackburn, it's like they're up there, they're close to the playoffs. You're thinking, well, perhaps this season. I don't think that they've ever quite been in a position where they're going to get automatic promotion. But it seems to be a constant decline.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season, they seems to get this level, and then it starts to just slip away. So they get the fans. This is where you get all the criticism from.
Yeah.
So you get the fans building the expectation, building it, and then it's like, oh, not again. And I think that there can be many reasons for that. Of course, many reasons. But you've only just got in the job. But the club should have learnt from that over the last few years. It really should have learnt. And the coach, whoever the coach was, and obviously quite a few coaches, and I don't know whether they did or they didn't. I'd be providing so much information in January to the owners, to you, to the director of football, and saying, this, if we want to get in the playoffs, we need this, which is obviously going to put a strain probably on more than anything else before, which is the budget. So if you want the club to succeed and you've got faith in the manager, and you look at this saying, "Oh, we need the players." So why do you need more players? Because your job is to look into the future as the coach, head coach, or the manager. Your job is to predict what's going to come if you do get them, or it's going to if you don't get them, based on the information and the data you're getting, saying that these players will not last at the level they're lasting. Because the one thing I find when I went to West Ham, and I don't know whether this is the case, the physical output in the Championship was far. The one thing that were better in the Championship, the Premier League, was the physical data. So when I researched West Ham, and I got, wow, you have to work harder here than you do in the Premier League. I found that absolutely mind-boggling, because I didn't think any of the data would be better. But certainly from a physical point of view, and then you've got 46 games. Oh, well, obviously the big clubs in the Premier League have
Champions League,
all of that, like you mean. So there's always a time, and I think we talked off air, when I've gone to the directors and gone, with the bottom league, if we don't spend and you don't help me, we're going to get relegated. And then provide with them what we need. And then if the club still continues to ignore it, then you can't really blame the coach if he doesn't succeed at what you're after, because you've not helped him just that little period of time, and you can all benefit from.
And I suppose it's even more difficult.
It's interesting seeing Sam sum it up quite easily, and obviously without having too much of an insight and watching us every single week. I don't know how much of an eye he keeps on us from afar, but seeing how understandable and knowledgeable he is of the whole situation is quite nice as a Rovers fan, I would say.
I guess what it looks like is an extremely experienced football person trying to maybe give some insight to somebody who he can recognise doesn't have that insight. And a little bit, there's a lesson in there, which is he's explaining, this is why your manager left.
Yeah, and he's proven, we used it when he was John Williams were here, and he went to see John Williams, and we didn't have any money, and he said, look, you get me the money I need to get Salgado in, and he's going to get you another 3 or 4 positions up the table, which he did. And Sam sort of proven. But it was interesting throughout everything Sam was saying there. Rudy's going, yes, I agree. So it'll be interesting what comes out out of his mouth now, because throughout everything Sam was saying, his head's going, yes. So let's see what comes out of his voice is also going, yes.
As well, I think it's interesting as well that the fact that he's highlighting that. I agree, it does happen season after season. We go on this, and obviously, as a supporter of a football club, you are going to get excited when your club does well, 100%. But then it just goes off a cliff at some speed, and then it's like now look at this season coming up. Yeah, obviously we're all close, but yeah, so mathematically, personally, we're going to get it. But it's a game, and you look back and you think, if things had not changed, I think we would have been in there, and we were having a good season, 100%. But it's kind of like speaking to a puppet, like Glen was saying. Do you not realise this stuff's going on?
I think Sam genuinely feels like disillusioned, like speaking to him, where he's giving him these pointers and these almost like hints and like Jack said, lessons, and you could probably tell in his eyes, like his face, that he's just not taking it in.
Do you think Sam set the seed very early? You're 36, are you? And Sam's looking at him thinking, you're 36. And his little tongue and his little thing, he's going, I'm going to have to try and educate here. And so far what I've seen, so it's a bit like of an educational piece and a bit of a paternalistic look. I need to put your arm around your son because you're 36-year-old and you're looking a little bit out your depth, and I'm not really getting much the other way. And he's sort of talking to him as a father rather than giving him a hard time. But there seems to be, from Sam's perspective, just looking at his body language, he can't believe he's the guy out of a job and this guy sat on the brink of a boardroom.
Well, it's not just that, but I'm sure that he's the first person to talk to him like that, because a lot of people would have seen his inexperience and seen that he's out of his depth and gone, cha-ching, I'm in here. If I keep this guy friendly, keep this guy sweet, I'll be living the dream for the next 12 months, 2 years on a fair packet that I won't get anywhere else.
But when you have to replace your manager halfway through the season, were you involved in the selection of the new manager?
Yes, I was involved. So going back on the discussion we had, we knew that in December we start to have injuries.
Yeah.
In Championship, the robustness of the player is very important. So coming to January, we knew we had to bring new players, to bring fresh blood and make sure have depth in your squad, because the difficulty in Championship, you need depth. So you need bench to make sure when your starting players are getting tired, you're able to rotate the players. And we were in a position where it was difficult to rotate our players, and John didn't rotate that much. So then you start to pick up injuries. But you need also a budget to make sure you've got depth in your squad. So you have to be clever the way you recruit players. You have to go different markets, because the domestic market is very expensive. So if we want to be able to build a squad with different quality and make sure we've got the depth, you need to be a bit more creative and go abroad to bring players. So to make it happen, you have to have alignment from the board, the head coach, and the recruitment staff to make sure we're all okay on board when we present the players to the head coach. And if there is an alignment for this situation, that's where the problem can start. So we thought we brought players going to make our team better and bring robustness to our squad. And then January we had more injuries and more injuries. John left. Then we appointed Valerio and Ismail. So it was a long process of recruitment. Long, I would say. You have to react quick. But we didn't want to bring someone for a short period of time. So we sit down with the board and say, okay, what's our project going forward? The one we discussed at the beginning of the season, which is developing our...
Yeah, I want to pick up on his last comment there. We didn't want to bring somebody in for a short period of time. We're talking about a manager that's had 10 clubs in 10 seasons. He's already got more than half a golf bag. He's 50 odd games is the longest he's been anywhere. So we're looking for somebody for a long time, long period of time. We've given somebody 3.5 year deal, which I have been told by the executives does have a contract break in there. At the end of the season where they can part ways. But that old chatter there, we're looking for somebody long term. The guy CV, doesn't matter if he turns up being the greatest manager this club has ever had. There's nothing on his CV that shows longevity. And you'd have to question the decision-making process, why you would take a manager on who's got no longevity in anywhere he's ever been.
Yeah, definitely. He was tripping over himself when he said it was a long process. I mean, we had to react quickly, but it was quite a long process, but we did it as quickly as possible. We wanted someone for a long time and the right person. And it's almost like, well, like you said, there's plenty of examples, Glen, where he isn't the right person for a long time because he hasn't stayed for a long period of time. But also when you look at other clubs' long-term recruitment of managers, like I'm going to lean on Bristol City hiring Liam Manning, which is obviously an easy pick because they've done well this season. But their board and the alignment of their board was all about improving the stadium. They put one of the first clubs to put safe standing in the Championship. They had £50 season tickets and for children, for juniors, and every junior got a free Bristol City top with their season ticket. Like they are thinking of the future. They've hired Liam Manning, who was such a progressive, playing out from the back. And I know they got absolutely destroyed when they came to Weewood. Was it this season when they played out from the back and the keeper made 2 mistakes?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got absolutely crucified for that, but obviously they're reaping the benefits from it because they've got a long-term strategy, they've got a long-term plan. We've gone from Yondal Thomason to John Eustace to now Valerian Ishmael. In 18 months, we've played 3 styles of football that would make you a triangle that covers every single basis of like football tactics and football philosophies. So unless we get like a full long-term strategy, unless we hit the jackpot with one manager, which we kind of already have done, we've just not backed him with the 2 examples we've already seen from Yondal and Eustace. It's never gonna long-term work out, which is it's just bonkers.
Yeah, and it's again, just again, when we go back where he says we've got this model about youth development and bringing the youth players through, and it's about the project. He suggested that John Eustace signed up to a project, and everybody's aligned on a project, and he's walked out, and this obviously the new manager's coming on the project. But if the project's developing young players, again, we've all interviewed for jobs ourselves or interviewed other people. Where in this manager's profile has he shown any longevity to demonstrate youth development? There's no consistencies in terms of alignment of why this was the perfect candidate. I had a laugh with my wife when he was appointed. I said, so this guy's been sat in his kitchen with his wife talking about buying a vineyard. Phones rang back Bassett style, and he's gone, we're back. We don't need to change of career. We're back. Somebody's going to give us a job. Yeah, I'm a little unsure how somebody with no longevity aligns to this developing players. There doesn't seem to be anything tangible in his CV that suggests that he can do that. At the same time, he may be able to do that, but it's a big risk in an ever-changing sphere of football.
Do you think the emergence of young talent over the last couple of weeks, and I don't mean like how talented they are, but more like in the squad and getting minutes, do you think it's linked to this summer's review of the academy status?
Yeah, there's almost like a question as to whether or not it's a cynical move to some degree, right? Like whether or not they're cynically putting youth kids in there, because later in this interview, apparently he's mentioned that he wants 6 or 7 players, but that doesn't add up for my sums in terms of a completed squad unless you're including quite a lot of youth players. The other side of this is we've kind of seen it maybe the past couple of games. His tactics, his kind of, as managers say now, philosophy is basically run players into the ground for 60 minutes, and whoever's the most knackered gets to come off at 60. And if somebody else has got 10 minutes more, they get that, and then we want to use all 5 subs. As far as I'm aware, the I guess the conversation at the minute is that players are being exposed to too many minutes early on. We're aware that that's bad for development because they are going to get hammered and it's going to massively inhibit them. It's already a 46-game season in the Championship. I think, Glen, your point about kind of where is the evidence that this is a manager that can nurture youth is really valid in terms of just how long he sticks around and how long of a strategy he can put in place. But even it's essentially you're turning your youth prospects into cannon fodder. You're just going to kind of burn them into the ground, and then there's various youth players that have like loan players that came on that have done well for like half season, then burnt out because they're being used as first team players. That's not really how you blood youth through. Like if they can prove themselves and kind of maintain the standards, or they have the maturity and the kind of intelligence to be able to preserve energy through it, they'll get through it. But look, to your point, Rob, I expect you're going to see 5 or 6 academy graduates fast tracked into first team status, because if they think they can only pull in 6 or 7 to replace the people that are going to be missing at the start of the season, then they're going to have to find replacements from what we've already got.
Yeah, just a couple other points. He touches on the January window, he touches on the summer window. Rudy Gestede identifies these players. He's the guy who's brought the non-young players into the club, and obviously spent a whole transfer budget on doing so you'd expect these players to play. And he talks about, obviously, we need to, going into December and that lot, a couple of injuries, and we need to make sure that we've got depth. Well, under the league rules, you have a 25-man squad. That's the same for every football team. You know, we managed to get ourselves, you know, Ohashi, obviously, he's been a great success. But when we bought Ohashi, this guy just done a full season in Japan. And straight into a next season, you didn't have to be a brain surgeon to realise that he was going to have a point where he was going to get injured, he was going to get fatigued. And obviously, he's had that bit of a rest now and he's getting that second coming. But come the end of January, we had a player in Sigurdsson where we've ended up with a 26-man squad. We've ended up with a 26-man squad and a player who was allegedly injured, who's actually kicking footballs around again, i.e. Ray Nelson style, was we've got one too many, you'll have to go now type thing. But it's the same for every club. It's a 25-man squad. Yes, we've had injuries, so's everybody else, but I do like John Eustace, what he always used to say, we play with no excuses, and that includes getting injuries. And so far I'm hearing a lot of excuses.
Yeah, 100%. I think you make a really good point, but I also think as well with, you know, obviously the way Sig was kind of kicked out, it doesn't also as well, on the other side, for any prospective players wanting to come into the club, it doesn't give it a good look. But we've seen it before. Ethan Briley, Duncan Maguire, Lewis O'Brien.
Talent from the academy, make sure we're sustainable. We don't have the massive budget, so we have to be creative the way we recruit players. And when we've got the right, when we identify the right guy, he has to come in the building ball. So we have to make sure we've got resale value on the player, because that's how we get money for the club. Then we try to work on principles of football we wanted to have for the club. We identify a few head coach, and then we try to find the right one to have an instant impact for the squad, because obviously championship is going very quick. First few weeks we've got 5-6 games and you don't have time to settle down, so he had to understand the team. Speaking English was a big factor for us, because you have to be able to communicate with the players. And then when we had identified the right one, Valerian was the one who stood out, and we decided to go with him.
I was worried when John left, because I thought Sam was going to get the call straight away, and I thought the podcast was going to be over. I kept saying to you, didn't I, Sam? Is your phone rung? Is your phone rung? Is your phone rung?
Would you have taken the job if it?
I think it's very. I said then, and it's very difficult to do that when the owners sacked me after 2 weeks of being there. You know what I mean? Not that I hold a particular grudge against them at all. They'd made the decision they have to make by the information that they were given, which obviously was the wrong information, and I think they learned to their detriment about that later on. And once they got wise on how football clubs run, it had cost them many millions before they got wise to how a football club should be run, like you mean, by people that they trusted that didn't deliver. In terms of, I mean, choice of managers, choice of players, and they went through an whole process where they had to pay them off and continue to pay them off before they found out, which is obviously par for the course. If new owners come in without any knowledge about football, and if they trust the right people, then that's fantastic. The transition can be relatively good. If you trust the wrong people, then all of a sudden many millions have slipped out the door.
Did you speak to them, by the way, in those 2 weeks?
No, I only spoke to Madam, I can't remember her second name, unfortunately. That was only by phone.
Right. In terms of the new manager, slow start.
Yes.
But the last 3 games, 3 wins in a row for him. Have you been impressed with the recent performances?
Not impressed. Obviously, we're happy that now we're winning games, but not impressed because we knew that was a possibility when we hired Valerian. We knew you've got transition period. He was losing 2 players per game for the first four games, I would say. So then with the depth of our squad, it's getting difficult. Now we've got players back from injuries, key players. The performance always getting better, even when he started to get to the players. I would say our players have been emotionally affected also by the departure of John, because he was good with the togetherness. So it took a bit of time for the players to realize, okay, we can have faith in Valerian. What he's proposing to us is working.
It's interesting, you know, when Rudy's already said that he was assigned with the task of going finding a new manager, and we've had that bad set of results. And yeah, we've had a very good 7 days and that lot. But he's never going to go on thingy and hold his hands up in his first, close to the boardroom role and say, you know what, I got this decision wrong. You know, this was a bad decision. And it feels like these interviews, and I believe he's got a couple more to do, is a little bit, I got it right, and sort of trying to validate the appointment. That's how I feel when I'm listening to this. It's sort of like trying to validate, I got the decision right. And if that sort of makes sense, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but it seems like a validation of, I got it right, he's the right man.
It's that old business adage of nobody gets fired for hiring IBM, right? Like, once upon a time, so I did everything right on paper. It didn't look like I was doing anything wrong in theory. I can back it up with the theory and whatnot, except I didn't apply any of the essential knowledge that I should have really kind of been able to apply, like looking at our position. I think, look, the frustrating thing for this, with this manager's kind of communication, which it's a tough job, obviously, being essentially the kind of press figurehead for a football club, but he's gone from the team's done really well, not much needs to be changed, I'm here to support these players and kind of get the best out of them, to we're looking at next season, it's all about implementing my ideas, my philosophy, and what I want to do, which is a similar kind of ice covering, right, Glenn? Like, it's just, things haven't worked out exactly as we thought we were doing, but like, look at this new thing that I'm going to show you right now. But that's, I guess it's quite common amongst new generation of football, the characters within it, where it's very kind of management speaks, very kind of hyper kind of positivity. Like, you look at, this is petty, but like, you look at the manager's Instagram tagline and it's like, I never lose, I simply win or learn. Just like, it's all of a similar ilk of like this perennial sunlit upland perspective on just kind of garbage output sometimes, which admittedly last 2 games much better, but those 6 games were just a shocker. And I think this interview is ending up being an exposition of the fact that it is all quite hollow management speak that seems to be kind of governing the decisions that are being made.
Yeah, I think the problem with the results is that, like, context needs to apply. If this was the start of the season and we'd lost the first 6 and then we'd had an upturn of form of the last 3 games, and I'd be like, yeah, he looks like he's turned a corner. But obviously with teams winding down for the playoffs, for obviously Luton are doing quite well, and it was a good result to actually go there and win for first time in a long while. But obviously hit the crossbar, woodwork 3 times, and on another day could have easily lost that game. And it's almost like, I know I used the Farage meme the other day, like, you all laughed at me, but you're not laughing now, are you? But it does feel like, see, you all thought I was wrong, but I'm actually right here because we've won 3 in a row, and I'm glad. Obviously, it's changed. I'm glad results are turning and we're doing well, and I still have the faintest of hope that we'll win the last 2 games and we'll go to Bramall Lane with something to play for. But it won't be because of the decision making that the board made. It'll be like there's plenty of other reasons why this upturn in form has suddenly happened, and yeah.
Yeah, it's been fantastic to see smiles on supporter faces over the last week, because the mood's been really low, and ultimately we all want our football team to win games. I have seen, obviously, the subsequent sort of stuff that's come out from the club since, and obviously Rudy again, and it reminds me very much of when Keane was here and we went to Old Trafford. And we, was it Grant Hanley who got ahead? And crikey, that guy was doing a lap of honour on every media outlet that he could do, and that lot. It was like the King's coronation. And it does take me back to those days of suddenly we've got this result and let's tell the whole world about it. Credit to the manager, he's got us 10 points in the last 4 games. If we go back before them 4 games, it didn't even look possible. And yeah, against all odds, there's a glimmer of hope that we could mathematically make it into the playoffs. So you've got to give the manager credit there. But I can't get away from the fact where we were sat before John Eustace walked out of this football club, and the man that sat in that chair, who's talking to Sam Allardyce and his colleagues, have a lot of questions to answer still. Why we lost a manager while sat in the playoffs, and I don't believe he's answered that question yet. Not to the satisfaction of supporters.
And it will work in the future. Now they've got the belief. I think our result against Sheffield Wednesday, when we came back to 2-0 down, just give the belief to the players. Then we go away, we won the games, and then home, and then away again, which is fantastic now, because you can see that the dynamic has changed in the squad, and the players are believing in what we're proposing, what Valerian wants as a principles in the pitch, and it's working. So hopefully we carry on this way until the end of the season and see where we land.
It was in this crazy world of Blackburn Rovers at the minute, what it feels like. There's always stories going around. TalkSport said last week, I don't know if you heard it, Sam, TalkSport said last week that Wayne Rooney was being lined up to replace Valerian in the summer.
Okay.
He's only just come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we cannot control the media. You know probably better than me. That's their job, to try to give information around. I don't know if it's from an agent or from the player, from Wayne Rooney himself. I don't think so, but you never know. No, it's never been the plan. We're happy with Valerian. We want to give him time. We chose him because of the project, and that doesn't make any sense to make a decision now.
That would have been about that. The new manager was struggling at the time, which creates how long is he going to last? And then obviously the vultures come out.
Yeah.
And start. I think I said this before in the podcast. In the old days, if you were struggling a bit, you'd look up in the director's box and see all the out-of-work managers there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Showing the face, I'm available. You know what I mean? So it's never changed. Never will change with the speculation. Like I said, all you've got to do is win.
We had Valerian just starting and we were losing games. And the media start to say that we were losing games because he was hands in the pocket. And he wasn't showing emotions, and so that's why the players were not performing at their best and everything. Now we're winning games. He still had the hand in the pocket, so what can they say about this now?
I've got to say, Rudy, thank you, because you have said that we can ask you absolutely anything, and so I really appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate your honesty, because there is things. I'm just a football fan at the core, and there's things I have to ask you because the Blackburn Rovers fans will want the answers. Yeah. So if we go back to the Venky's, Sam mentioned them before. I think the kind of overarching question that Blackburn fans have about the Venky's, I mean, first of all, do you speak to them?
No. The way we structure at the club is we've got the board of director, with Steve Waggett, the CEO, Suel Pasha, who is the representative of the owners, and Robert Cole, who is the non-executive director.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there, Robert.
Is he?
Still there. Yeah, I will.
Wow.
So he's still there.
Hey, he's lasted a long time, Robert. Well done.
He's been through a lot,
a huge amount, yeah.
So I report to them when we have to make decisions on players, transfer, any type of decision, and then their job is to discuss with the owner when we need a budget or any informations, and they come back to us. So I don't have any direct contact with them. I know, discussing with the board, that they're still watching our games, as they're still involved in the club life and the operation, but they're not based obviously in the country, but it's working this way. Yeah,
that's the norm for the Premier League, Nat.
It is, yeah. I don't think we're doing something different than the other club. It's just we are in the highlights because of our fans are not getting happy about the situation. But most of the club in the Premier League or Championship, where they've got foreigners owners, they're not in the club on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, I think maybe we've got some owners that are so visible currently when you think about Wrexham or Brighton, Birmingham, owners that.
I just want to pick up what he said there. He's never spoke to the owners. which means he didn't speak to the owners when he got this role. He didn't speak to the owners when he did his internship, and he didn't speak to it when he's got his role. And when we're talking about the Rao family, and obviously lots of people won't think he's out, Rao's out, we've got to consider what their business model is. And their business model pretty much is they entrust the stewardship of the club to those that they employ, which means the decision to take Rudy Gestede on has been made at Ewood Park. It's been made at Ewood Park. Somebody at Ewood Park has decided Rudy Gestede is the right person to be the director of operations at football. And he's not gone through a vetting service with the Venkis or the Rao family. This is somebody at Ewood Park making a decision to bring Rudy Gestede in. And we've heard other people in the past that they've never talked to the Venkis either. So when we're looking at why things are falling down, we're aware that the owners put money into the club and they pay the surplus, to cover the operational side. But is he confirming here a little bit that having the blind leading the blind on the ground running the operations, which is Sahel Pasha, he's the guy making these decisions. He's the guy who's saying we're going to have Rudy as our football operations manager, and having no sort of input from the owners or no sort of this is why this is the right guy. They don't even speak to him. Is this why we're in this position? Because we've got your likes of Sahel Pasha making day-to-day decisions of this football club, entrusted by the owners, and playing devil's advocate. If we didn't have a Sahel Pasha, we had experienced football people, does suddenly our owners actually become a very, very good ownership model because they provide the funds if you've got the right people running the football club?
It's interesting, isn't it? And I think it just proves what majority of all know. They also don't communicate, which again I just find weird. Surely you want to know how your football club being run. Your post investment or whatever you want to call it. It just proves everything right. There's just something not right with this football club, and there hasn't been in 15 years.
But like you said, Glenn, they could be good owners if they had good footballing people running and making key decisions, but every good footballing person that makes key decisions they've had has either left or they've gotten rid of. So
or one person's got rid of them who's been there 15 years.
Yeah.
Good point, Glenn.
We're looking at the constants here. Sam picked up on it earlier. If you trust the right people to run your football club, you'll do well. They've got a history of trusting the wrong people and losing millions by doing so in payoffs. We go back to the Crescendo days where they entrusted via a contract for Crescendo to run the football club. I don't think there was ever their intention to micromanage and get heavily involved in running a football club. It was literally their initial business deal was Crescendo, you'll run our football club. We'll put a little bit of money in each season, and hopefully at some point it's going to be a club that can stand on its own 2 feet. The one constant, Sahel Pasha, he was part of the takeover. 15 years later, he's still there. The club still isn't standing on its own 2 feet, and we continue to have what I would call projects in people suckling on the tea when there's probably better, more qualified people out there at similar type of money who could be doing the work in the best interest of this football club. And then where the model where Venky's what they bought, if they're putting money into the club or they're not saddling it with debt, which we know we're not, is that what this club really needs? It actually needs a stewardship of experienced people to run the football club in the best interest. The owner becomes secondary then. And that, again, I'm just sort of playing devil's advocate to try and understand the constants and why we keep getting people at the club with little or no experience.
I can kind of understand that if Sahel Pasha was like an outside hire, but he's the representative. He's obviously a trusted employee of theirs that's helped with other businesses in the conglomerate of businesses. I can understand if they'd hired like potentially someone like Steve Waggett in his position, and then he'd made the decisions. He was doing the stewardship and hiring and firing the wrong people. But if he's got that relationship with the owners, why is he choosing these people? Because it can't be good for his relationship with the owners, because the owners must see videos like this and they must see like the social media around Rudy Gestede and start thinking, well, like, why is he popping up? Why have you done interviews for the last month? We've never had a director of football or a head of football operations do like stuff like this and do more media involvement. So why is this happening now?
I think they look at that now, but you got to remember these are a major global enterprise. People talk about chickens, they're massive in pharmaceutical. Blackburn Rovers was an acquisition, and I do know from discussions, over in particular the last 10 years with various board members at the club, that the only sort of KPI parameter that this board has been set by the owners is if you can show each season that we're having to put less deficit and you're showing success without sort of a greater understanding of what actually football means in a community, and actually you've got empty seats and you've got this. If each year you go back and say, well, this year we lost 20, now we lost 19, now we lost 18. In terms of what they bought, in terms of a loss-making operation, it's actually showing progress. Although obviously the product, the saleable assets, the sales of season tickets dropping, I don't think they get too much into that detail. I think they're literally looking at the bottom line of what it's saying on the balance sheet, and ultimately, if each season they go back and we lost a bit less this season, we've lost a bit less. Some clever business speak. That's great. We'll see you again in 12 months. And I genuinely believe that's how the operation's being run.
Yeah, I think that's slightly exposed with the way that Natalie Pike asked whether or not he's spoken to the owners, because, yeah, as you said, Glenn, if they were really paying attention in any way to the running of the football club, the investment that they've made, they'd figure out that this guy's probably top 3-4 people most important hires in the business, and they've not had the insight, or they've not wanted to kind of get involved with that, despite him saying that they're very much involved in the operations, which means that he's being vouched for, which means that somebody's vouching for the decisions. And whether or not this in the long term turns out to be an excellent hire and turns out to be the right decision that's been made by somebody at the club to do it, the fact is it was waved through. Like it was a shoo-in, because one person makes a call and we know who that person is. That person is saying, don't worry, I've hired this person. You don't really need to understand why. But the novelty for them would probably be the full circle nature of a striker who did really quite well for us in the time that he was here, who they will not have followed the career of at all, coming back to them. And that will, you know what, if you're not actually fully involved in a business that's at arm's length, and somebody says, do you remember that person that I came and asked for some money from you to purchase? Well, he's come back now and he's going to run that side of it. Like, that's just all like, that sounds like a great idea. That's one. And you think he's good? Great, amazing. Let's get that lad in. I think it's obvious, isn't it? Like, there's really one decision maker over there.
Kate, have you anything to add before I start the video again?
Just speechless.
Yeah. I'm gonna I might put it on like 2 times speed so we can get through it before it might hurt less then.
That are so visible, then perhaps that's what fans want to see, because obviously the Venky's haven't been at a game in a long time. I don't know when the last time the Venky's were at a game. They don't attend the games, and they're losing money. I think the questions, like the confusion for the fans is, and I guess this is just a very much opinionated question for you. Why do you think the Venky's still want to own Blackburn?
To be honest, that's not a question I can comment, because I don't have the answer to that. What I would say is, in Championship, most of the club are losing money. The owners are still there, putting money in the business. They are still putting money every season in the business to make sure we can operate, we can produce something on the Saturday evening, on the Saturday afternoon or Tuesday evening for the fans. So I would say they're still involved in a way. Then I cannot comment on why they're keeping the club. I think they still have the patience, but that's just my words. I cannot comment for them. But what I would say, as one of the leaders of the club now, we've got the backup of the owners. When we make decisions, they are behind us. They still want us to do the best for the club, for the Blackburn Football Club. And if we're able to produce something on Saturday, it's because they are behind the club, putting money, and try to drive the club.
Are they still putting money in?
Yeah, every season.
Every season they put money in?
Every season they put money just to stay afloat, because Championship is, with the revenue that we have, I think we've got a shortfall between 20-25 million per season. So if they're not there to back up the club could go down. So obviously we're very grateful for what they're doing. And I think the fans should try to understand, not with emotions, but more with a pragmatic vision of the football club. And that if we are now sustainable and we can produce a football match on the Saturdays, because they are behind the scene putting money in the club.
I think I speculate on that. I think there's a chance that they're thinking that somebody's going to come along and offer them enough money to buy them out.
Yeah, I think that's what the fans want.
Well, it's not what the fans want. It's what they want.
Oh, you think it's what they want?
Because because. I mean,
the owners?
Not what they did to me. It's not that I want to stick up for them too much, by the way. But I mean, that's life. I don't have any animosity against the decision they made, because that happens in football. But I would just speculate, and this is purely my opinion, that they end up looking at how much money they lose and think somebody's going to come along and offer us, some consortium's going to come along and look at Blackburn and say, when you see other clubs like Wrexham being bought and Birmingham and go on and offer them a sort of money so they're not going to lose as much money as they've lost, because that must be millions now.
Oh yeah. Another thing that the fans often say, obviously a big sell on for Sammy Smodics and Adam Wharton, but where is the money from that in terms of reinvestment in the squad? Because I know that you brought in, was it 6 players in January?
Yes.
I think, was one of them $1 million, and the others were short-term deals. Where is the money that was spent on, that was gathered from Schmodics and Wharton in terms of reinvestment into the squad?
So we invested a bit of money in the summertime, where we bought 1, 2, 3 players, over 3 million for the 3 players.
Okay, right. Glen's he taking a break. I mean, it's been quite a while.
Yeah, I need to just go and nip to the toilet.
A comfort break.
Yeah, comfort break. We're back in 5.
I guess we can speak a little bit about the fact that, I don't know, Sam seemed to have it pretty spot on before about kind of the fact that they'd obviously not trusted the right people, and the way that he'd viewed how fans feel about what seems to happen, kind of mid-season, every season to us. He's maybe, I don't know, maybe he does have his finger on the pulse in terms of their intention. He's seen a lot of football clubs, he's seen a lot of football owners, he's directly interacted with a lot of them, but it doesn't seem like that to us, I suppose. It seems like they're just kind of perennially vice-like gripping this club. Come hell or high water, they seem to find a way to make whatever happen. So I don't know if I can agree with him that they are genuinely holding out for an American private equity firm to jump in and be like, Blackburn is the answer, Blackburn is the future. But yeah,
it's that thing, isn't it, though? And like that $1 million question, Jack, realistically, he's making the point and he's saying, they put this on the floor. As someone who would like doing investment, well, kind of, it's asking the question, isn't it? Well, why do you still want us? Is it coming down to the fact that they put so much money? Are they waiting for this? And it's kind of like, there is no problem. Like there's no confusion in terms of what supporters think and they feel and stuff. And it's not come back. Supporters should feel that. Yeah, obviously supporters, we do put money in the club. When you buy season tickets. Yeah, Matt, we don't have 25 million to get them, but we put something in to get something out of it. Like the fact that there's this season especially, and I've said to both of you and to Glen, supporters have just reached that boiling point, and considering going watching different teams, there isn't a match day experience at Rovers. Like, let's be totally honest here, there isn't. And if they think that what they provide No, I will argue until I go blue in the face. There's not a match experience in the slightest. There's a little kicker ball thing. There isn't. I don't get how we can. Oh, I'm gonna let Glen go before I just go like a total rat.
No, you're right though. The problem is that the people in those positions will never see it. Like, they'll never see the things that we complain about because that's not their match day experience. I was like, you look at, I think Natalie mentioned it there about like Birmingham's owners and stuff and the changes they've made just to the area. But like they've like putting over £1 million into community football in the city. Doesn't affect financial fair play. Doesn't affect any sort of like on pitch detriments in terms of like fines, point deductions, that stuff. They could put £500,000 into grassroots football in this town, and that would keep the town's grassroots scene going for the next 10, 15 years. But they've not done anything for the community. And I know like we've got like the community trust and like the Ewood Express that Yassir runs, which is great and stuff. But there are a lot of other things that they could do. And I know people say they've invested 300 million. If it's just to keep it ticking over, it's not investing. I've not invested £60 into my car by fueling it up. I've not invested in it. I've just kept it going and spent the necessary amount of people. And he mentioned like a lot of clubs in the Championship, or most clubs in the Championship, lose money. Yeah, but we've had an EFL TV deal that's gone from 4 million to 10 million. We're not seeing any sort of reimbursement from that. Our season tickets are only going up. We've had flexi ticket deals that are not really worth it. We've obviously had, I think, Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs are our second rarest kickoff this season, which is crazy. It's like, I think there's only been 7. It's like, if you can only make 7, well, like, your season ticket's no longer worth it. And even though you bring up all these points, it never seems to like, we've had discussions this week about the Watford game not being affordable, not having a discount for the first time in over 10 years. And they just don't care.
Yeah, it's the thing, unfortunately, of having to deal with people that when you're in this kind of, let's be honest about all of our positions here. We are not pro-ownership, none of us amongst us. So when you're facing an adversary that is not visibly a rational actor, it makes that mystery of like, what are you doing, so much more difficult to get your head around. Because like as you mentioned, Rob, like when you watch other clubs have owners that come in, and look, it's maybe cynical, maybe they're cynically putting money into the stuff around the area. But Glenn, you and I were talking and you're explaining like kind of in a small way that the amount of development that Jack Walker did in the vicinity, and it's little actions, right, where you're thinking outside of just the kind of the boundary of the football club that you are owning and you're occupying.
Yeah, the Rao family, though, in fairness, and I admire, what do they say this? Admire them for it a little bit. They've actually put a lot of money into the local community. Blackburn and Dowden Council have had a lot of money. The cathedral's had a lot of money. And there's been no press release over any of it. You know, so they have, when people have gone cap in hand asking for community money, the Rao family have invested and they've put that money into the community. And, you know, I remember going to a meeting with Kate to Learn, and it didn't take a long time. I think it was 2 or 3 meetings, and then suddenly they was getting some fundings out of Enki for local initiatives, and you never read about any of it in the newspapers and that lot, because it was they donated money, and because that's what they have a record of doing around the world. I think it's more of, if you look at their industries they're in, they sell widgets. In the former school, they sell widgets, they sell chickens, and it's how many you're going to sell, etc., etc. Here at football, such a variable game. You're not selling widgets, you're selling, it's not even a service, is it? But when we look at the season tickets, and people say, why are people not coming to the games? Is it price? For some, maybe. But what is the attraction for supporters right now? We think about not a penny more, and you got to remember, most of us can track back through generations and generations of how we got the bug, who took us up to our first game, or what was it that made us go to our first game. And at the same time, we've got friends and family who can actually tell you why they won't go to a game. And there's very few supporters I know as family members or as friends who've said, I'm not going because I can't afford it. It's I'm not going because of the Venkies, or I'm not going because of these charlatans running the football club. I've got a total disconnection. So we do talk about what they can do in some sort of dynamic pricing, but that loss of connection for generations of supporters, I don't think they get it. I genuinely don't think they get it. And it probably comes, when they talk about this, they always chuck it at supporters, that entitled generation. Is it the supporters of an entitled generation, or are we working with people at a football club, including players, who have always had big money, big wages, big boardroom wages? Is it them who are from the entitled background and so far away from that Blackburn as a town? The average wage isn't very, very high. It's a working class town. There's just total disconnection of where people sit in their circle. You're not going to expect Steve Waggett and Rudy Gestede to go down the pub with our fuzz lot, are we? It's just a different circle of people, and I genuinely don't understand. I genuinely don't think they actually understand the real dynamic of a football supporter.
Yeah, and I know what you mean about people don't openly say, I can't afford to go, so that might be the reason they don't want to go. But, I mean, obviously I'd say I'm in a very fortunate position where I'm have quite a good job, and my partner has quite a good job, and we are very lucky to be in that position. But I grew up going to Intact Primary School, middle of Whitebeck Estate, went to Our Lady School, middle of Shadsworth. I grew up with a lot of people that were living meal to meal and living week to week, and when I look at the prices for the Watford game and I see £27 for adult, £14 for kid, I know those families couldn't afford a £100 day out, and the final home game of the season was always that release where it was £10 a ticket, kids for £1, and it was £22 to bring the family. And I know it might not be the first excuse, but it feels at the minute that they're not even offering it, so it doesn't feel like they want those people there. Whereas if they had the pricing that your Boltons, your Prestons and Bradford City have shown so remarkably well in the last couple of weeks, where they're saying, we want you here, we're willing to take a loss financially to have you in the stand, that's the first bit of connection they can make. They can say, right, for the next season or two, we're not bothered about profits or revenue. We want as many of you in this stadium as possible. And it feels the opposite at the minute.
Who's making the decision though, Rob? Who does that fall on? Is that Sahel? Is that Yasia? I believe they look after the tickets. So these are the guys that are looking after the tickets. They're the guys that decided what the price is.
So when I put a long post on Twitter at the start of this year, when we played Burnley on the 4th of January, it was obviously the first game of the 30th anniversary season. We, as part of BRFCS, had a massive plan together. We were going to do a card display in the Blackburn end because we thought the lower tier was going to sell out. We thought, right, we'll get a banner for the upper tier. Josh Boswell had volunteered to use his studio in Manchester to paint the banner, let it dry, bring it to the Blackburn end on the day of the game. Contacted the club. We said, we've got this display, we've organised it, we've got so many volunteers to come and lay it out in the Blackburn end. The crowdfunding, or the cost of the overall display, was around about £4,800, which we had accosted for. We said we would pay it, but we said to the club, if you are happy to promote it, would you do a crowdfunding to try and gather some of the money back? Because we were just like a fans group. We didn't want to depart with £5,000 and not get it back. But we believed it would have added to the atmosphere of the game. It would have been beneficial to the whole supporters, so the club would get behind it. About 3 days before, I got an email saying, we're not willing to do it. The logistics of it are too much. Even though the club weren't really doing anything. We'd done the card display. Had plans to do the banner. We were just waiting for the AOK from the club. And then he pulled the plug from underneath us and said, we want to do it for the Watford game. which we know will have challenges around the Blackburn end not being as sold out, but we will try our utmost. And I think I put the message in the chat this morning, didn't I?
Can you say who pulled the plug, or are you willing to share who pulled the plug? I'm just trying to understand who made that decision at the club. Was that at low level or at high level?
Yeah, what kind of level is probably what you can get into.
Yeah, so I'd say it's someone very close to Steve Waggett. If you've had communications with Steve Waggett, you'll definitely dealt with this person. If people have communicated with them, I'm sure you can figure it out. But also inside the communications thread was the now head of marketing, who I've spoke to for the last 2 weeks about the Watford tickets, saying it doesn't really take much marketing. I sent her the screenshot of what the £25 worth in 1995. I think it was £10.18.
Is this the lady from Manchester United?
Yes. So yeah,
the listeners that don't know who she is.
Yeah, so this is Anna Amelia, who is head of marketing at Blackburn Rovers now. She spent 6 years at Manchester United, a club that you don't need to market. You literally could not go to that job and you'd sell out every week. You'd sell out millions of shirts worldwide. Man United, and this is a unbelievable fact, right? If Man United wanted £10 million, they needed to make £1 million DVD reviews, like season reviews, and they'd sell them at a tenner a piece and make £10 million, just like that. Just like that. And they'd sell $1 million guaranteed. Obviously, like with streaming services now, they can't do that. But with MUTV subscriptions, they make a hell of a lot of money. Blackburn Rovers need to be a bit more creative than that. We need to be very innovative and exciting with our marketing. And the marketing around the Watford game has been abysmal. I honestly, I can't fathom it, because it's the first time in over a decade we've not had a discount on the last home game of the season. But it was so easy. Like the 30th anniversary game, last game of the season, still got something to play for. It'd take you 5 minutes to come up with a decent plan and a decent marketing scheme, and we've still not got it. But the problem is, obviously I've asked these questions to the relevant person, and the only response I've had is, I'll pass it on to the relevant people. Now, if I'm asking the marketing or the head of marketing questions, and she's having to pass it on to the relevant people, I don't know who those relevant people are. I then asked if I could have the email address so that I could speak to the relevant people, and she wasn't willing to share that information. I then asked who it was so I could potentially reach out and get in contact with them through other means, LinkedIn, or find their email address elsewhere. Wouldn't pass on that information. So
I'd assume that'd be the marketing and commercial manager, because that's got a commercial impact.
Well, I think they would separate, because for head of commercial would be Jose, wouldn't it? And then obviously the other one, media, from my knowledge, would be Rob. I would say Rob Gill. But I've said in conversation with all of you, I think the issue with, I'm not saying herself, but obviously with her role, is she's come from Manchester United, and I've visited their marketing team through like my degree when I did business and marketing. The marketing team is small. You're talking 5-6 people, because again, as you pointed out, they don't need to market. They're a global black brand. But I don't think personally, I'm going to say my personal opinion, I don't think she has a clue what she's doing.
I thought you were holding in a sentence then, Jack. I thought you were going to bombard her again.
No.
In fairness to her, she's come from Manchester United, and I understand it's a different marketing strategy and it's a different animal, but at least she's done the job before, and it's something that going back onto the video, which obviously we're critiquing at the moment. At least we've got one employee who we can say, yes, they have definitely done this job before. In terms of how well they do it, time will tell. But at least on her CV, she can say, I was the marketing person at Manchester United.
But if you were interviewing a person with that CV that was coming to market at Blackburn Rovers, and they say, I've done the job, I've done it at Manchester United, the first thing I'm saying is, this isn't the same job. Marketing for Manchester United and marketing for Blackburn Rovers, they're not even in the same world, they're not even in the same galaxy.
This is the point we're making, though, Rob, that You know,
The people
if you've
hiring
got people running, if you've got people running a football club who haven't got a clue in the main, because there's very few with the experience that, you know, they come from different backgrounds and haven't worked in football, or certainly in the roles that they're doing, they're not gonna ask that question, because they're still trying to run the football club like they're running a football simulation game, where if it doesn't do quite well, or they're playing the FIFA where you're playing your mates online, and if you're losing 3-0, suddenly your internet went down. Oh, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
You can't, this real life, you can't keep pressing reset and learning upon the job, because it has catastrophic consequences, which is £300 million investment from the owners, which has been not invested, it's been wasted.
Yeah. And do you know also as well, from what, like, going to your email you were saying, Rob, there doesn't seem to be like any alignment with what they do. There's internal people, but it's like they don't know who they're speaking to from one moment, and it just seems the same throughout the whole club. No one knows who to speak to for certain issues.
Yeah, so when I had my meeting with Waggett in the summer, when I mentioned these things, he was very much in favour. But again, if you do, like, actually get plans in place and wait for the green light, I don't think he's that person that can give that green light, which, as a CEO of a football club, is worrying if you can't give the green light to a £4,800 scheme that's going to shed some positive news and shed some positive lights. He'd AOK'd, and the people around him had AOK'd the display and the design and everything. They were really happy with everything. And then 3 days before it just got pulled from under our feet. And that, I don't think that was his decision, which, as CEO, is quite... I would find that quite worrying.
You certainly deserve a proper explanation, because supporters don't get paid for giving the time. You know, we've seen many initiatives that we, the Rovers, have done. Your fan engagement days, BRFCS have got involved, Proud Rovers have got involved. Obviously, her game too was there a couple of weeks ago doing her thing. You know, supporters don't get paid for investing their time into helping the club build a better future for the club and doing the engagement stuff. You're there on your free time. You're there because it means something to you in the heart, and you're genuinely doing these things, you know, for the betterment of other supporters and to try and get a good feel. So if you put your time and effort into something, you deserve a very good reason of why something doesn't happen, and they should never ever leave that bad taste, especially when somebody's gone out of the way to come up with an idea, foster the idea, get what they think's an A-OK, get excited about it, and then have the rug pulled from beneath the feet. You know, from an integrity point of view, it's really, really poor. But in your situation, they made you feel that way, Rob, and anybody else involved, because it's just the wrong vibe. It goes against everything that they claim to be promoting.
Are we carrying on with the video? I feel like we've been paused for ages.
Yes. You know, give us some more of that
spiel.
Bad medicine, yeah.
Then the one in January over 1 million. So overall, it's around 5 million spending. That's almost our budget in terms of transfer
To the squad.
So we invested a bit of money in the summertime, where we booked 1, 2, 3 players, over 3 million for the 3 players. Then the one in January over 1 million. So overall, it's around 5 million spending. That's almost our budget in terms of transfer window. The thing I would say is, maybe if we communicate a bit better, what's the plan for the club for next season, the fan will understand that maybe the plan was not to spend money in January to get to the playoff, but just to start to build the foundation of the club and to develop the club this way. And if we land in the playoff, it's perfect. But that's maybe not the aim at the beginning of the season. As a competitor, as a club, obviously we want to get back to the Premier League. That's where the club belongs. But we need to go step by step if we want to sustain there. So now, last season we were fighting for relegation. Now we're fighting for promotion, which already a good step going forward. Next season will be to build from this foundation and to go higher and higher. So I'm excited about the next transfer window coming up, and obviously we'll have a budget to work with some trading, obviously, is part of the football club, but also with the backup of the owners, and we'll be able to make our team even better and better.
So the sale of Smodix and Wharton, the amount that they brought in was kind of irrelevant then, was it, in terms of what what the spending budget was always going to be?
Yeah, there is operation costs, so it's not just for the players trading. The money is used for the staff, for the facilities, so it's been used for that, and part of it is for transfer window. So we used the money that was available for us, and the operation view on the club was the money was used for that also. But the money is not coming in one slot for those transfer, so we have to manage our cash flow also at the club.
I want to know the TED talk you watched about body language and hand movement and stuff, because I'm someone that talks with the hands quite a lot, but there's some movements in there that just don't feel natural to the words that he's saying. He's talking about like player trading and like it's all one way, one direction. It's because we're selling everyone rather than bringing people back in. Who are we planning on trading? Because we've not really got much people left. And I think he mentioned earlier in the video that we acquired players that the value will go up this summer.
I was trying to think that because, again, Allardyce's done well. They bought him cheap, but he's not exactly a young man, is he?
No.
Guy, I don't think they're putting him in the shop window because they've not played him for the last few games. Carter, maybe. Callum Britton. You know, we're going to see Callum Britton leave the club, 7 or 8 million quid, and then that's where your money comes from. There's definitely an indication there that they're looking to trade players out to bring players in.
Again, he says at the beginning of this that it's 6 or 7. He says at some point that it's 6 or 7 players that they want to bring in. So how many are you going to let go that you need to then replace? And then what's your contribution to the overall squad complexion? Like, the fascinating thing is understanding, as we do, because fans now get more information than we've ever had before, understanding that there are processes like squad planning and stuff. Like, there's nothing I see in terms of deed or words in this instance that indicates to me that this is a guy that's really ahead of it when it comes to squad planning. And you can even see that when it comes to the fact that we can't seem to renew a contract unless it's the easiest contract in the squad to renew, in the shape of Dom Hyam and Yuri Rivera, which, good renewal. I think we'd all agree that we're all happy that he is renewed, but also that guy's on a 6-month deal basically to the end of the season, having been essentially let go of his previous contract. It was straightforward to do, and it seemed that one of those was at least pushed through on the basis that we'd all kicked off about everything that was going on. I think if he thinks that he can play a trade in that model for profit and only bring 6 to 7 players in this summer, we're walking in with something like 17, 18 senior players. There's no.
How many are leaving? How many are leaving in this summer? How many loans have we currently? Let's work it out. How many loans have we currently got in?
So this is Sanderson. Wouldn't he be?
So we've got Sanderson,
Koji Dewberry,
obviously
Woodrow.
Liverpool lads. Woodrow, Dennis. The Liverpool lads gone back.
Yeah, Beck.
5. Have we got somebody else?
No, they're only allowed 5 loan slots.
Right, so that's 5 loans. Then who's out of contract at the end of the season?
Danny Bart.
Dolan.
So Dolan, that could be 6 gone. Doesn't look like he's not looking promising there. Who else?
Yeah, Danny Bart is out of contract. We're probably going to get renewed if we're being honest.
They'll probably extend that. So is that probably the 6, the 5 loans, and
that's 6 now.
Because I feel like I feel like there's a lot more, or they're definitely coming to the what coming to like the last year.
Yeah, Ryan Hedges, that ring a bell?
He's got another year left after, I think.
So it's him, Tronstad, Travis, and someone else that are all going. And it's Callum Britton that's all going into the final year, isn't it? They're like the big 4 that are like going into the final year.
And obviously Forshaw and Wyman as well.
Yeah, Forshaw and Wyman, but Forshaw. So you possibly got 7 or 8, but that's before. So if he's talking about bringing 6 in, that's before he's even considered what he's already said in his earlier statement, that the club will be trading players out.
Yeah.
Selling players. So are we going to later hear down this line that he's going to be bringing 6 players in and then he's going to be propping it up with 7 or 8 academy players? And if it's 7 and 8 academy players, Has it 7 or 8 academy players proven and trusted? And what does that do in terms of ambition for around promotion, stroke relegation?
Do we wonder whether or not he was prepped before this particular interview?
Not with what's coming out of his mouth.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it, does it?
Do you know what I'm surprised about though as well? The fact that she's kind of all saying that, oh, it's good that we can ask you anything, because I think majority would have thought someone would be looking through those questions and just no.
But I mean, I don't think that
players out of contract.
I don't think they're the answers most people want, though. I know, like, and a lot of the answers he said, like, when it came to like the ownership and why they still own the club, I don't know. I can't tell you that. Well, yeah, they're great questions to ask, but unless you get an answer and like an honest answer from someone, are they really great questions? Like, I think you need to be more focused on his role and the stuff that he's doing, stuff that he can definitely answer. But would he be capable of doing that? I don't know.
I don't know. As an employee, if you went for a job interview, if I went for a job interview now, I'd be looking, what's the health of the business? What's the longevity? Have they got the sustainability? What's the, because when you go for an interview, it's a two-way interview. You're interviewing them, they're interviewing you, and that lot. And there's got to be this, I see the vision, I see where we're going, I see there's longevity, I see. It's much easier. So, you know what, I'll go and work there because it looks like they've got a bit of a plan. I want to be part of that. I really want the job. Or the Blackburn model where we hear the word project. We've been hearing it for 15 years and that, it's like the sequel. Every time somebody new comes into the club, we talk about the project. And one of my biggest sayings I say at work is success is uncomfortable. And to be successful, you need to become really uncomfortable. And the worst thing you can do is jump off an uncomfortable road and change direction. But every time we recruit, be that a manager, be that a Greg Broughton, be that a Rudy Gestede, it seems like full reset, and then we go through the same rigmarole. And in the meantime, the club continues to decline, and our feelings in terms of how the club is being run gets really onto that tether and that breaking point for certain people where it just goes, enough's enough. How many times do we have to keep hearing the word project before it's, that broken record is beginning to wear a little bit thin?
100% or long-term vision, or I'm just waiting, and I don't know why, but I feel like someone's going to come with the whole togetherness soon. It's the same dribble, isn't it, that we're just constantly hearing. Like, you already savage a bit and be like, change the record, say the same things again and again. Like, show us some action, something that's going to change, because it doesn't seem to be changing. And I'm sat here, and I don't know about obviously Glen, Rob thing, but I'm thinking, is actually anything going to change in the summer? Probably not.
It's like a long-term vision of short-term plans, isn't it? Like, we're going to carry on down this road, but nothing's actually going to... There's no, 5-year, 10-year plan. You mentioned there, Glenn, about having, interviews. It's a two-way thing. Interviews are a two-way thing if you're qualified for the job and you're thinking it's a good fit for you. But if someone had come fresh from work experience, getting an interview as a director of a company, you'd be a bit like, I'll say whatever you want me to say to get you in this position. They'll have seen the salaries, they'll have seen the benefits of getting that position, which a lot of people at the club will probably be.
It's probably before your guys' time, but when I was a child, I used to watch something on telly called Mr. Ben, and he'd go into a fancy dress shop, and he'd go into a little changing room, and that day he's going to be an astronaut, and the day after he's going to be a zoo master, and the day after he's going to be a policeman. And it's a little bit like that at Rovers, Mr. Ben and that lot, where you can just walk in off the street with the most fabricated CV or no CV, and within 2 years you could be sat right there at the top table having drinks with Alex Ferguson and everybody else and that lot, and impersonating a football executive. That's how it feels at Blackburn Rovers right now.
Every football club is no different from most football clubs. When I was there, because Jack Walker had passed away, unfortunately, for Blackburn Rovers fans and Blackburn. there was no money anymore invested by the owner, by the family that ended up taking over. And I think that we had to find, every year, John Williams came to me and said, we have to find this much money in a transfer, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we finish with the transfers, we'll see how much we may be able to give you in your budget to go and find some players, which made the academy even more important than ever before.
Yeah.
So, you know, investing in the academy is a long-term project. You know what I mean? But still the best way, one, to get a cheap player playing in the team, and two, to get a valuable player. You know, that's why I dislike the fact that all the Premier League football clubs can take them while they're still in the academy. So it's not any different to now, then, which was a big shift, because you look at Blackburn's recent history, they've won the Premier League. You know what I mean? It's you know what I mean? So when I was there, the history was still in Jack Walker and Alan Shearer's era with Batty and Sherwood and, you know, all those big players that they had. And all the fans that came all remembered that, all knew that.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? So there's a pressure there, but you know, but it ultimately became about overachieving or just keeping the team in the Premier League. That was, which is sad, but there's nothing better than being in the Premier League.
And I think that's the frustration of the Blackburn fans. And I think there is definitely a disconnect between football fans and understanding the running of a football club, because we hear 25, 30 million pound for two players. Right, that's 25, 30 million pounds to spend on new players. The disconnect I think we don't understand is the 30 million brought in and the 5 million spent. The fans want the investment in the team. But I guess you're saying that Blackburn just don't, even with that money, they need that money, Blackburn, to just sustain.
Yes, true. And it's not the plan at the beginning of the season to say, okay, the money we coming in the business, we're going to reinvest straight away in the transfer. That's not the plan. We want to develop our own players. We want to buy cheaper player, not in terms of quality, but in terms of price, and resale value like we did with Smodic. Bought him for over 1 million, I think, and sold him for 10 millions. So that's the model of the club. The plan of the club is not to spend money to go back to the Premier League and win the Premier League again. Step by step, we're developing the club again. We've got good foundation. We need the fans on board. So we need them to understand that, but maybe we need to communicate a better way to make sure they understand what's the plan for the club. If we're in the playoff next season, or if this season something happened, that's fantastic. If we're in the playoff next season, it's fantastic too. But that's not the first aim. We want to develop the club and make sure when we bring a player, he's got resale value. And that's how we're going to operate going forward. And then when we've got more money coming in the business and we break even with the revenue and everything, then we can start to build and go higher and higher. But that's the first part of the plan.
So as far as you're concerned, then, that the Venkies haven't got the club up for sale?
As far as I know, no, not on my knowledge.
No, I think that's an important question for the fans.
No,
It's impossible for a championship club to break even with revenue.
Yeah, 100%. And also, he's now confirmed twice that there is no plan to get to the playoffs even. He just said, like, that's not the plan. If we get in there, that's perfect, that's amazing, but there's no plan to get to the playoffs. He's just conclusively said that twice.
Yeah.
It confirms what I said earlier, that these executives, senior leadership team, or whatever you want to call them, are working on this model where each season, if they can cut the loss, so there's less money to be put in by the Venkies, to come away, like Sahel said, away from the benefactory model, where they don't actually have to put any money in, and it's money out, money in, stand on your own 2 feet type thing. Seems to be the business model that they believe they can do as a championship football club. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
When we talk about business acumen, and they need to show us where's the blueprint for this model, for a team that can only sell 4,000 adult season tickets, a team that can't compete in the transfer market, and they're spending sort of transfer revenues less now than they were 35 years ago. A team that can't compete on the wage front, because as you keep cutting your cloth, and to try and cut your cloth for an extra £20 million, the only way you're going to be cutting that cloth is cutting down on quality of said players, because you're not going to attract the right players because you're going to be paying very small wages. You know, at a time when inflation's going up, people get better contracts elsewhere. It's absolutely mind-blowing that they think that this is possibly the blueprint of how our club will be run. If we talk about players that have come through our academy, even when Jack Walker was alive, how many have gone on to be top-class players at top-class clubs and have gone on to have an absolutely fantastic career when we talk about what has come out of the academy to date?
Yeah, 2 points quickly. Like, if we go back to his initial declaration that he's never met the owners, he can't conclusively think that that is the model that's coming from the owners, right? That's coming from a voice within the club that he's spoken to, which we can say is a very small group. And on your second one, the only one I can really think of post 90s, post like real development process of what we understand kind of development within football to be, Damien Duff has achieved that definitively. Like, he's hit the absolute heights of being a developed footballer within, technically we developed by us, but we bought him in from Ireland pretty late on. Dunny because we love him, and then it looks like Adam Wharton will be the other one. That's it. That's what we've achieved in about 30 years.
I'm probably Phil Jones.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But, you know, when you look at all the money that goes into the academy, and Rob will probably know the numbers better than me, is it £2.5–3 million a year to run the academy?
That's the minimum you have to spend to qualify for Cat 1 status.
Yeah, and I think the young lad Mahoney was obviously did the podcast with the Blackburn End podcast not so long ago, and he was discussing that the amount of people that go into the club, you know, we're not talking 10, 15 players that are going through academy. It's hundreds and hundreds with that maybe 1% chance of making it, you know. So,
I mean, the Price of Football pod was very interesting today because he mentioned about speaking to an academy manager who had recently left his position, who was told on the spreadsheets that the academy would cost 6 million, but his budget was only 2 million for the season in the academy. Now, I don't know many other academy managers that have left in the Championship, and it was from a Championship club as well, but that it wouldn't surprise me. When I've looked at the financial figures like on Company's House from Rovers, the amount of staff we claim to have is an unbelievable number, and the figures around that is just, when you see the amount of staff that are currently leaving, and you see like the amount of playing staff, I think what one season was up to like something like 88 players on like full-time wages, which just doesn't seem anywhere close to what it could potentially be, even like under 21s, under 18s, under 19s. It just didn't seem at all.
Rob, does that theoretically include anybody who's getting technically still paid over a long period, that they might have a contract being paid out or similar? I don't know. I'm asking on the theory. Like, would you, if you were a player that was getting your contract paid out, would they keep you on PAYE so that they could pay you in that structure? I don't know. I'm guessing, but I'm just wondering whether it's inflated there.
It can be done because that's what Chelsea are doing with the minute with the length of their contracts to make the financial sums seem a lot better on their spreadsheets. But I can't think of many that we've let go that would still be on those sheets. Like, I could
not recently, you're right.
Could potentially maybe like Sam Bournes with his injury.
Maybe.
Off the top of my head, but who was the other lad? I mean, Jake Batty's still with us, and I know he's at Accrington now. He's still on the books technically.
There is, of course, that unspoken thing where there's a wage contribution that extends for the duration of their remaining contract when they go to a new club, because they're not going to get paid as much, and that's negotiated between the clubs as well. Again, speculating here, but just for that thing of, if you're looking at, I don't know, what's the under 23s will be like 20 people in the squad, and then however many in the under 18s, you get to like 50 or so, 60 maybe, and then suddenly you're at these 10, 15 players that are on the last 2-3 years of the deal, that they're getting paid a fraction out of it. I don't know. I'm just
They're not looking at
but
they're not looking at the, if we look at the successful models in present day football, we look at Brighton, we look at Brentford. There isn't really an academy model. They've got a fantastic scouting network that goes and picks up a Caicedo, goes and picks up an Eustace, or comes and picks up a Gomez, picks these guys up at 18, 19-year-old who are really good, pays some money for them, doesn't just chuck them straight in the first team, maybe loans them out. They look at it at a 3 or 4 year plan, or if they can get them in the first team in a 12-month plan, and then they sell a significant product. Because Bloom, when he runs Brighton, he runs it like a stable. He runs it like he's looking to get his next racehorse and that lot. He'll breed that one with that one, get a 2-year mare or whatever, go it through the stable, take it up through the ranks. Their model, yes, they've got a couple of players that come through the academy, but it's really about them purchases that they're making. And when we look at Tottenham Hotspur, when they come and bought Phillips off Blackburn Rovers, and Crystal Palace, who have come and bought Adam Water off Blackburn Rovers, these teams' model now is, let's get this good young talent who's already kicking a football around, who can either play football for us in the first team or can play football at Blackburn Rovers in the first team, and let's get them on a fast track to make us some money. We've gone back down, we'll just try and blood them out of this academy and bring loads through. I think if I look back in history, in the time I've been watching football, Manchester United had a fantastic year where all them players came through it at the same time. Was it class of 92, is they call it? I think Liverpool had a point where they've got 5 or 6 come through at the same time. We're trying to come up with a model here by spending no money, having hardly any revenue, and expecting to polish a load of young lads to be able to not only be a sustainable Championship team, but actually go into Premier League. I'm struggling to understand the business sense around it in terms of performance upon pitch.
Yeah. And do you know as well, like, if you notice what he was saying then, he kind of stumbled, didn't he? Because I think he said, cheaper, then he was like, going into the quality. Like, you can have and get, for example, like Leeds, I know this was my thing, but one of their players this season I think that being outstanding is that Iowa Tanaka. Absolutely nothing. I think they literally paid a couple million for him. Again, someone they didn't know exactly who he was, but completely outstanding. They just like letting Jackie made the point, Robbie made the point. They're just trying to do everything at the cheap, and unfortunately, at one point, the bookie's going to stop. They're bringing in the history. There's so much more than the history. Like, I just don't get why they're going down this route. It's not going to work.
You need a good trading model. You need to be, bringing the academy through is good, and you do need to do it, but what you can't do is rely on it 25-30% of squad. You need good recruitment and a good for a club ours. We've always been a trading club, even when John Williams were here. Buy at the right price, sell the shirts, have them on your books. Don't have all these loanees in. The Peterborough chairman would never have a load of loanees because he can't get the next Ivan Toney if he has a load of loanees, as he said on Sky Sports. Bring the players in at the right price, get them firing on all cylinders, and then you have to sell. We've always had to sell a star to sort of balance the books, but I just think at the moment we're just cutting the cloth so thin in terms of the investment of buying a blanket set of players and spending peanuts and then hoping that we're going to get the next 20-25 million pound sale. And I'm struggling to see where our next 20-25 million pound sales coming from to prop the club up for the next 12 months.
The problem is that if you do cut it too thin and the squad is really poor, but you've got one starlet, you're forced to sell even cheaper anyway because they'll want to leave because they're not happy in the current squad, and they can entice them out. Whereas if you look, I don't want to compare us to Coventry and Bristol City just because they've had a good season, but Bristol City sold Alex Scott, reinvested it well, obviously up there, part of the plan, part of the trading model. Coventry, they've lost the same amount of money as we have since COVID. They've sold £40 million worth of talent and spent the exact amount. I think it's something like 38.9 million. So in terms of trading, they're doing exactly the same as us, but they're never going to break even in revenue because they know that that's an impossible target to hit. And until these lot understand it, until they try and work out that revenue is not something to chase, it's something that will have to be paid until we get to the Premier League, or if football completely changes, then the long-term plan or the long-term vision is just, it's going to die a death. It's going to go the opposite way.
The last discussion we had, I think they never mentioned that they wanted to sell the club.
Right.
It's just the fan speculation and probably the hope of the fan at one point. But since they bought the club, the fans, the publicity has been bad against the owners from the beginning for different reasons.
Advert right at the start.
Yeah.
Will go down in history, yes.
So I think they still have bad publicity, even with the money they put in the business. But when you go down straight away, and it's obviously it's a difficult time. But now we need the fans to understand that we want to go back in the Premier League, but it will take a bit of time. But they have to believe in what we're doing.
How do you do that then? Because there is no positive opinion of the Venkies at Blackburn in the fan base. I think that's fair. Obviously, I'm not a Blackburn fan, but I think that's fair to say. So how do you do that? Does that come under your remit, first of all, like in terms of PR and communications? Is that in your remit?
I think we all part of it.
I think he's got too big of a job for that.
Yeah.
I think we all.
And sorry for that. So what he said his job description is, if he wants to get, if he wants to be, if he's just a director of football and plans with the manager to get, his job description's far bigger than that, because it takes him down to the academy, down to all the other areas, and you can, if that is fine, but the job description, just in my opinion, is far too big. If you're going to get Blackburn back into the Premier League, your job description is I'm director of football, work closely with the head coach, work closely with the owners, work closely with the financial director, work closely with the commercial, but your main focus is how do we build this first team?
Yeah.
Now, some time for the academy, and that. So it's foot and the organisation with the manager, and plan it on what you're going to go forward together to get into Premier League. The size of your job description means that you're.
But what I would say, just to define it, I've got amazing people with me.
Yeah.
So it's just me by myself.
So you're delegating well then?
I hope so. Yeah, that's how I believe.
Yeah.
But we've got the head of academy, we've got the people in charge of recruitment, we've got people in charge of catering. I'm just overseeing it.
We don't have a head of academy anymore, do we?
I thought he was leaving.
End of the season, right? Yeah.
But we're not recruiting a replacement yet, are we?
No.
No. But is that really a surprise?
No, but I'm surprised that he said it.
I mean, technically, he's not lying. He currently has a head of academy.
Yeah. Like he currently still has Tyrese Dolan and 6 other players that are 6 weeks away from not being at the club anymore.
Exactly.
That you mentioned a point there, Glenn, about him nodding all the way through. Sam said he has to be close to the head coach. He has to be close to the owners. And he was like, yeah, after 35 minutes of saying that he's never spoken to the owners in his whole time being at the club. I feel like I'm in a fever dream and someone's going to come and... I don't know. I want to play it just...
I feel like just his body language and he's there nodding away that if Sam said halfway through, and obviously you can't do your job, can you? And he'd be like, no. He's like in a trance, and in awe of Sam's experience, and he sat there and he's very much in awe of what Sam's sort of saying to him and that lot. And he's literally agreeing to everything, you know. By the end of this interview, Sam saying, "Will you split your wages at the end of the year?" Because absolutely.
Sam like almost said the full sentence of like, it's a really big job, and what the unsaid bit was like, for a 36-year-old that's never had a job even remotely in this space before, like by outlining it's like this lad's got to get down to the academy and like try and get the first team ready. It's like you're describing a director of football's job there, Sam, but you're looking at this guy.
Yeah,
This guy nodding away with his tongue out.
Yeah. Well, you know, Sam's dressed like Jack Nicklaus and he's dressed like Al Capone. So,
So I'm not the one doing everything.
Yeah.
I try to delegate as much as I can. We still like a small business, Blackburn. So
Yeah,
we all
absolutely,
know
yeah.
each other and we all work together. So I think it's working well at the minute. We've got close relation with the head coach, with the board, but we want to involve the academy people with us. So we make sure we...
So how many players you're going to need next year?
Next season, we've got few players out of contract, few players out back to their parents' club. We've got players 1 year contract. We have to make decisions. So I would say we've got 4 to 6 positions to fill, main positions, and then see how it goes during the market. But that's...
So it's another 6, 7 or 8 then?
6, I would say.
6.
Yeah.
Do you lead on those negotiations?
Yes.
Yes.
I
With the
lead
players and the agents?
Players, agents, and we've got also the CEO is taking a bit of this job too.
I have to bring up this, by the way, because it came out, I forgot about this. It came out how much money's been paid to the agents.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, but just to give you
You know what I mean?
for you to understand,
You know, the Premier League and then even in the Championship,
Leeds
how many
paid
billions?
amazing amount of money for agents fee, which is more than probably our wage bill.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea of how we can compete with the top team in the budget. So make the job harder for us, but we have
That's
to
the
be
owner's
clever.
fault. That's
Leeds?
the owner's fault.
At Leeds?
No, everybody.
But everybody's on the agents?
Yeah, it's the owner's fault.
How come?
Because they never controlled them in the beginning and let them
Yeah.
get carried away. Relied on them too much.
Tyrese Dolan,
Yes.
he's played the 5th most minutes this season.
That was a big skip. Talking about the owners being the issue around football agents, and all of a sudden it was Tyrese Dolan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. You could see. I thought he was going down a different route there about the agents, and it's a difficult conversation that to have with an ex-footballer as well, because they've got an agent and their agent's been getting them a good deal throughout. And these footballers see the benefit of having an agent. I haven't seen recently what our agent fees are.
I'm going to find it now because I understand why he's bringing the lead was around 18 million, but like I'm going to find it for now.
It was like around 1.2 million for us.
Yeah.
But is it money well spent at Leeds, because they've just got to Premier League?
Yeah, but they've also just lost 60 million in the last season.
Have they?
If they hadn't have gone up, if they'd have finished third, they'd have breached financial fair play.
Leeds is 19 million. The next nearest I can see at a glance would be Burnley at 5.3.
What was Rovers?
1.2 basically.
So we
1.18.
So out of our £5 million budget, 25% of it we gave to the agents. So
I have to assume it's on top of that. Like we're basically paying VAT on it.
Right. So for example, right. So just for example, who's near us, right? So Sunderland at the moment, obviously going of Sunderland was 2.17 million on fees. Coventry 1.5. I just don't get why. I understand why he's bringing into things, but again, like Glen's point, but we are spending around as many as the people are.
Without spending the same transfer fees. Yeah.
Yeah, if you put it in comparison, if we use 5 million as the number, and across 2 windows, is it 11, 12 players? 11, 12 players. So if you sort of average it, if you said it was 10 players, so you said 500 grand a player, and you're paying 1.25, but you're paying out of that, you're paying another 125,000 per player in agent fees. It's absolutely astronomical. It's
a percentage for sure.
It's astronomical that the club have gone back down this route of paying these agent fees, because I think if we go back through the account, I'm pretty sure Rovers got it to maybe 30-40% of that figure. But at least we actually had players that we could sell at a profit.
100%, yeah.
It's actually complicate things. It's February 24 to February 25, beginning of. So it's summer and the January before. that we've looked at. So this 5 million maybe not there, but I mean, we didn't spend a huge amount in either of those two windows. It's 3 million that we did in the summer, and then whatever we did the previous January, which was it that much?
Yeah.
No, it was this January, wasn't it? It's February 24 to 25, did you say?
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but it's again, in terms of what we've actually got, January, one full-time recruit in Carbo. The summer, Guy. So we've got Guy, Ohashi. Who else was a full-time?
Vyman.
Danny Bath.
And we've got that Adam Forshaw.
Was Cantwell in the summer as well?
Yeah.
And Cantwell.
I'm going to assume
his
age. I'm going to assume the agent fees are Cantwell's.
I think it's a well-heeled agent.
I also had a look as well now, looking for these are the ones from February 2023 to 24. Our agent fees there were 893,589. So yeah, it's an increase, but
yeah. So change of the guard, Red Broughton out, Rudy Gestede in, and a 50% additional spend on agent fees. That's what you're telling me.
And probably less spent in transfers.
Less spent in transfers, and as we get to the end of the season, in terms of saleable assets, of where you think, we can make a right good profit on that one now, I'm struggling.
I am.
Did we pay any money to outgoing players' agents at all? Not that we'd see that broken down, but is that a possibility even?
No, that's on the new club, surely.
Yeah, that'd be on that'd be on the other side, and they get a cut on. Well, no, you do pay both sides. If you've got an agent acting in your behalf to try and get a better fee, but I know in the chats I've had with Waggett over the years, he seems like the type of guy that does his own negotiations. He's a bit like Barry. He's a bit like Barry Fry. He's not,
They're intermediaries, aren't they? Not agents.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll let it run, but yeah, it's interesting that our agent fees have creeped and the quality of resaleable assets has dropped.
I've watched you. He's been fantastic this season. His contract's coming up, or it's getting short.
Yes.
Are you in negotiations? The Blackburn fans will want very much like to know if he's staying.
You want to know, the fan wants to know.
I feel like I'm talking for the fans right now, yeah.
So Tyrese is doing fantastic.
His agent will be busy now.
Tyrese is doing fantastic this season. He's a young talent. He joined us a few years ago from Preston. And since he joined us, he's a fantastic human being, fantastic player. So obviously there's discussion ongoing. We want Tyrese to stay with us for a longer period of time because we think he's got a big future going in front of him. And we will be happy to have him in the club next season. I think it's quite clear. But to make a decision, it's both parties have to agree on the contract. We made our part. Now it's up to him to come back to us and to start discussing.
Well, if it rejects a contract, that means somebody's already
assuming
already tapping him up.
When you're doing well at this age,
which
you've got different.
By the way, is supposed to be illegally. By the way, but I mean, when do we ever see anybody taken to a FIFA tribunal now about illegal approach?
He has to decide what's the best for his career and going forward. Is it Blackburn?
How many games he played this year?
Fifth most.
Yeah. I think he missed. He didn't miss any games through injury. 22, 23, going 23. So nice.
So he's well established then. At 22.
Yes, he is.
Potential. He's got so much potential.
Well, his potential should be a reality at 22 now.
Well, yeah, he's been.
You know what I mean?
He's been doing well, and you can see he's evolving every season. He's doing better. His stats are better. His game understanding is better. He still have room for improvement, which is good at this age. And I think he's.
So, what can we say to the Blackburn fans that obviously the big question would be that your policies and recruitment policy next year means that the players and the squad's going to change quite dramatically. So
I won't say dramatically, but we have to change.
Well,
we have to evolve.
That's only my opinion. 6 or 7. Mind you, I suppose that's not a lot these days.
On 25 players.
On 25 players,
not massive.
So,
we need...
Still over 25% of your squad.
Yeah, I'm thinking on Rudy, Tyrese Dolan's not on Rudy Gestede. That guy should not have gone into this season with 1 year left on his deal, and it's a recurring theme. Yes, we get a couple signed up to new contracts, but somebody somewhere is keeping that purse string so tight that contracts are not getting signed. And obviously, we hear what Mahoney said again on that Blackburn End podcast. In fairness to Rudy, he's coming at the beginning of the season. This guy's got 1 year left on his deal. He's still finding his feet. Somebody within that club should have took ownership that guy does not go into his last season on a last year of his contract. And it's all right, like they've just done with Hyam, extending that 1 year. But now we're going to have Dom Hyam going in to next season on a 1 year contract. So yes, it's great, we've got a bit of a buffer, but they've got to get this sorted. We can't afford to keep letting players go into a season on the last year of the contract, because we talk about buying small, selling at profit, or young players coming in through the ranks. If you haven't got them on the contract and that, this dream of being a self-sufficient football club is getting further and further away.
100%. And obviously, we've seen this before. Like, remember Glen with Ben Bryant and Diaz. Like, it happens again and again. And also, they say it's a player trainer model. Well, I'm supposed to. You're not going to get anything from, are you? You know what I mean? Unless you literally let them go down. And bear in mind, we are 2 weeks away from the season ending. And these people are just gone, and it's kind of like, it worries you. Well, who are you actually going to replace them with? And again, who's going to take accountability for these constant issues every goddamn season?
Yeah, the example on the freeze that I think undermines this concept of the owners, engagement levels or whatever, is the story that came out around Rothwell, where the manager wanted to sell the player, saying, let's capitalise on what we can get in this moment and see if I can do something with whatever the proceeds were. And they stepped in and said, no, we're not accepting anything less than whatever it was. And the same thing, Katie, was that with Brereton, they had a number in their mind. Nobody met that. So they were willing to hold on to him and let him go for now. And in the intervening seasons, we have managed, through whatever means, to bring in significant transfer fees, and they won't invest that back. Like, there's no, again, this is what I said earlier, like, rational actors, if you're going to take the hard line and say, no, this is an asset that we think we can keep and it'll give us a better shot at getting to the promised land, fine. But then when you do manage to sell a player, like, plough that back into it. What he said in this interview is that that's not the strategy. We're not going to drop in these crazy fees that, other clubs are way more capable of doing. It's like, none of it has a logical sense. It's on the hoof. Like, the whole thing is just being made up as it's gone along.
100%. It's literally like you sat in the middle, guys, of some sort of Alice in Wonderland sketch gone wrong. It doesn't make any sense, and I just question these. Where they get information and why they think this is actually correct. Like, who do they report to? And I remember the owners. Well, how would you technically know? Because you don't communicate with them. You've already said in the interview, I don't speak to them.
Well, Glen said it before, though. Glen said it before, like, they didn't really know what running a football club was about, and here they find themselves 15 years into running a football club, still relying on third parties to do it for them, but without anybody who's qualified to do it.
The issues they've got with the budgets at Blackburn Rovers, the budgets get sort of finalised with the club in April, and they get sent to the owners in May. And that is the forecast and the amount of money that the club is forecasting it's going to need over the next 12 months. And it's not variable. Within that is a fixed ratio for wages and transfers. There lies the problem, because the fixed ratio on wages and transfers is basically inflation rises, bonus rises, and doesn't take into account the variable element that you could have a player that's worth £100,000 today. He has an absolute blinding start to the season, August to December, and suddenly he's gone from 100 grand to 5 million. And you do not have, within those forecasted accounts, a buffer to then suddenly give that guy from 5 grand a week to 20 grand a week until those numbers are put back on the table in April, because that's how this business model works. Remember what I said? Lots of different enterprises around the world. You guys go away, run it for 12 months, and show me that you can cut the deficit each season. So the business model Rovers have got is not dynamic for the variable inflation of performance of players' values going up and down, because when the players' value goes up, the contract goes up, and the need for what they can get comes up. And as the value of the player goes up, if the contract remains here and they haven't got the fluctuation of the monies to then raise the contract value to where it needs to be, they're at the sharks, because somebody's come banging on the door. As Sam said, there'll be clubs already tapping up Tyrese Dolan. He knows he can get X, Y, and Z down the road, but I don't believe Blackburn Rovers have got the flexibility currently in this model, even at club level, to change the numbers because of how the club is run, how the business model is run.
I can't think of an example of when we've been stung by giving players long-term contracts. Like
Sam Gallagher.
I was really stung by it. We weren't really like it wasn't like, I mean, he was still playing towards like the season that he left. It wasn't like, I mean, I suppose some people like question his ability and question whether he should have been in the first team, but he was still kicking a ball for us. I don't remember a player getting a 5-year deal and falling off and then not being in the squad. Where you look, I mean, we've signed players like that, like Wes Brown, Jack Rodwell on short-term deals where they've not impacted us, and Emmanuel Dennis will probably fall into that category.
I only know the time when they've given deals like Adam Wharton in December with the intention of flogging them the month later, because they're not taking a long-term hit in the accounts.
There's Leon Best, isn't there? That was like a big deal, and he got paid out of it at the end, didn't he?
Yeah, I think that was more like a leg break, I suppose. That pre-season friendly attack, but yeah, that's a good example. Leon Best, I suppose. But like when I look at other clubs, I think Jordan Ibe was signed for Derby on like a massive deal after he left Liverpool, and obviously is now kicking a ball like non-league, which is a massive fall off from the contract he would have got. But would we have, if we'd have signed Tyrese Dolan to a 5-year deal 2 years ago, would we really lost out? I can't think of any player where we've wanted the club to sign a new contract and then it's them not doing it has proven them right. Obviously Ben Brereton Diaz is still playing at the same level. Gallagher's still playing for Stoke. I know he's probably wouldn't be good enough for our team.
Dolan won't be on a life-changing contract though.
No,
he's not going to.
No.
What, $8,000 a week, $9,000? He's not. He's not going to be on. He's not going to be on major money.
He's on the same deal he was on when he joined from Preston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been told this.
That's an academy deal. He came into the youth team, did like 2 weeks there.
So is it another Mahoney? Is it another Mahoney deal type thing then, where we've
as far as you can tell, right? As far as you can tell.
Yeah, without getting into legal jargon. Yeah.
The rumoured salary.
Has he not signed a pro contract? He must have signed one since he come.
It was his first pro contract because he'd left the schoolboys at Preston. But the rumours are that it was around £800 a week. Whether he's still on that, I don't know. There might have been some sort of deal if he played so many games it went up, but in terms of like being close to £10,000, I don't think it's anywhere near that. I'll be surprised if it's more than £2,000 a week.
And then, I know everyone's talking about them. Do I blame them for going if he is on that? No.
It's hard for us without actually having the kind of
isn't it? You know what I mean? Knowing it's that like definite amount.
Right, and not having the wage structure in front of you where you see the entire squad and you try and draw comparisons between his net contributions and the people that are on higher wages than him. But I suppose if you were to speculate, and if we believe what we've been told about Emmanuel Dennis coming on, doing about 70 minutes cumulative, but taking home 20 grand of his 80 grand a week, these little bits where Tyrese Dolan will be looking at his contribution over the season, thinking about his minutes especially, but all the small bits of data that we don't usually see, but they'll be getting fed back to them by the analysts. They'll be thinking, like, why am I not worth 12, 15, 18, even 20? Like, why am I not worth that to this club if they can find it for people that come in and aren't contribute at the same level? And so, yeah, I mean, I don't look, if he leaves, I won't have any problem with him because you can understand it, but it just raises questions as to what does this development model mean? Like if we bring a player in however many years ago, give him over 200 championship appearances he's got now, build him up to that point, and then we just look at any other championship club and say, have this one, he's pretty good, done 200 for us, he's probably going to do 200 for you if you give him a halfway decent deal.
Well,
Yeah.
if you looked at a 22-year-old who's got more than 10 goal contributions in the championship this season and has had over 200 appearances in the transfer market, you're looking at close to 10 million before you even, and that's buying from a team below you in the championship. Any team that's chasing playoffs, you're looking 15, 20 million. So,
and flip that around, Rob. If in the summer we are linked to a player with that profile, every single supporter is saying like, yeah, perfect for us. We'd love that. He's got room to grow. He's probably worth whatever we can get him at. Like we want him. We want the profile, and yet somehow we're going to let him slip through the fingers.
Yeah, because if you look at, for instance, they stated, "Oh, we're not the club that spends this and this," and do you know if we asked like people that watch, I think like if I could say where do I think he would go, well, to be honest with you, I think he'd go Derby. I think Eustace would be in for him like that.
Which takes me back to the point that I made earlier. You know, as a club at our current size under this ownership, what difference would it be if we didn't have a director of football or operations? What, is this a wage we need or don't need? Because they don't appear to have the clout to negotiate a contract at the right time at the right numbers. Their hands are tied behind the back around recruitment in terms of what they can spend. We've got a scouting network. Is Blackburn a case of it's getting a little bit too many cooks and nobody taking accountability or responsibility, and it's a little bit, well, it was their job, it was my job, and it's got a little bit of a playground because Rudy said in his own words, Blackburn's it's a small business mentality. We're not this think big mentality. Does this director of football model actually work? Where are we seeing it work? Where a manager has no proper input into the names of who he signs. He just gives a profile, and then whoever's in the shoes goes out and brings that person from wherever they bring. It's questionable if we need somebody in the director of operations or an operational role, in my opinion.
The problem is that usually at business and companies where people have no power is they look for power in other ways, and that's usually by getting a fancy job title or getting a fancy sticker on the door or like a label under the name, and that's the no one at Blackburn Rovers under Hale Pasha has any sort of power whatsoever. So they get these fancy titles and promoted to big salaries and big benefits, but not actually having the roles and responsibilities that go with that title.
And just to be maybe unfair, sorry, I will be unfair. As he was as a player at Rovers, Rudy Gestede's just passing through. An upgrade to whatever job title is simply the opportunity to have a similar or try and achieve a similar job title or a similar level of seniority at another club. There's nothing in what we've seen so far and what I've seen through any of his behaviour before now that proves to me that he's actually trying to build something. A lot of
he probably had his eyes on the same vineyard as the manager. Yeah, I agree. He's an ambitious young man. I've got no problem with ambition. Ambitious young man. He's 36-year-old. He's been given an opportunity. He's going to try and grab it with both hands. He's going to show naivety. He's going to show inexperience because he's not done it before. And I think he'd get a lot more empathy and support of supporters if he lost this arrogance persona. There's a bit of arrogance to a bit of swagger jagger, as we call it. I'm surprised he's not got crocodile shoes on. If you get a little bit humble,
I don't know what animal they are.
A little bit more humble. So I'm learning. I'm here to learn. I'm going to make some mistakes. There's nothing wrong with ambition, but show a bit of humility and be a little bit more humble. and you'll gain a lot more credibility and a lot more support and a bit more leeway with supporters because they understand you're on a journey.
Yeah, it's building that empathy in it with the supporter base.
Yeah, I think so.
Right, what do you think we should do? We should leave the last 15 minutes for Rory to digest. I feel like a lot of the talking points that are going to come up we've already discussed and talked to death.
I was going to say, do you want to scroll through quickly and see
just
what...
let it run, let's see what they say.
Okay.
Let's stay silent, and then we'll
Obviously,
have a
we
final
need
brief at
to
the
try
end.
to make our team
Yeah.
better, and with different contract situation, we need to bring around six players.
It's not many out of 25.
No, it's not that big, but we want
Why-
to keep
why
our
do you-
core players.
Yeah. How many in the academy in the 25?
So we try to bring one academy player on each position. So it's going to be part of the. So we've got A, B, C players. The C player, we want the player to be academy player. A being the starting one and B the sub or the number 2, I would say. But then in football, there is no.
So how many
decision.
academy players make up the 25?
So we'll probably have 7 to 8 academy players next season. We've got already 2 played last few games.
That's
good. We want to. So
That helps
it's been
the
a
budget.
situation last season when we have only 142 minutes played for our academy players from when John Eustace joined us. And the plan for our squad is to give as much as we can. So the years before that, it was 2,000 minutes for academy players, almost 3,000 minutes the year before.
I'm sorry, I paused it. It was so many minutes before because we had Adam Wharton. That's the only reason we had so many minutes. I counted 8 positions because I counted 2 centre-back positions, 2 centre-mid positions as 1. So, and 1 striker position.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
Same.
so 8, makes sense, but I don't think we've got the prospects for that. Right, let's get back. I can't believe he's mentioned the minutes, academy products.
We're just looking for screens League One touring.
Yeah.
So now we want to go back to those numbers. So that's why we want the academy players, if they are good enough, obviously, to perform, to join the first team. But you only know if they're good enough if you give them opportunity to be on the pitch. And last few games, Valerian did with Christy Montgomery and Igor Tyjan, with 2 fantastic talent from the academy. And we believe next season we'll have more players coming up.
Okay. In terms of Adam Wharton, he's been linked to many a club in the Premier League.
Yes.
Do you have a sell on?
I believe that I wasn't part of the negotiation, but I believe that the club, obviously, usually when you've got academy players, when you sell him to a bigger club, you try to keep something from the next deal. So I believe the club's got one, yes.
I don't think I'd have ever let a player go on without a sell on.
Oh, really? Really? How much usually? Like what percentage?
I would say I'd say it varied between 10 and 20%.
You can go higher on
Sell on.
young players if you want to
Okay.
give them the chance
Yeah.
to develop. You let them go for free, and you retain 50%.
Oh yeah, if you let him go for free and you retain 50%, that's easy for the club to accept.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I used to do sell on.
Stop.
At Bolton, yeah.
So the club sells.
So if
to
it went
someone
on
else and that club
20%
sells
and it
someone
went to the
else's.
next club, it'd be 5.
Okay. Fair play. What is the 3 to 5 year plan for Blackburn? How are you going to change Blackburn?
It's not just by myself first. I would say.
Good answer.
Yeah, because you need different people. You need the best people in their position to make it happen. The plan, as I said, is to develop our young players at the academy. So it has to be our next asset for the club. Buying young players with resale value, high potential. So when we want to prepare the next one, or we want to sell, for example, Sami Smodic, we need someone behind to be prepared. So we need also the head coach to be aligned with this decision, because we want him to play our young players, even when it's sometimes a difficult position, or you need time for the young players to acclimate to the championship level. Usually we've got a big pool, like if you go around London, you've got a big pool of players.
Yeah.
Birmingham got a big pool of players. Same in France, you've got Paris, that's where the most of the players come from, is from Paris. So that's where everybody's going to scout and bring players. We're not in this area yet as a club. We focus in the northwest as much as we can.
What category is the academy?
Cat 1. Cat 1
So that's
Academy.
good, yeah.
And we want to stay in the Cat 1 Academy, because it's been also the
That's
media
very good.
saying that we
Good
want
selling point.
we want to stay Cat 1 Academy. We believe we've got.
That's the first time he said that we want to stay as a cat. We want to stay, and not we're gonna stay.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? It's that wording, because like there's just something about the academy, and he's saying we want to. Well, from what I don't know what everyone's any perceptions for it, but what I read in the press, and again, is that it is staying a cat one. So isn't it or not?
Yeah. From his words in like the interviews he said is that it's going to stay as a Cat 1 academy, and that's the first time I've heard him say that we want it to stay, and we knew it was out of the club's hands, and the previous wordings were incorrect or lies.
The size of a club is good enough for a Cat 1 academy, and that's why we're gonna also sell the pathway to our young players for the first team.
So young players, bring them in.
Young players for the academy, but also you need to find the right balance, because to sustain in championship you need experience, number of games, not just about the age, but number of games in championship. You need established players to guide the young players, because if you don't have this in your squad, the young player is going to be not at the level that you expect. So it's the right balance between all the players with experience, young players coming up, but also bringing players from outside who's going to bring you something different that you don't have. So it's finding the right balance for the club, but for the sustainability of the club, I repeat myself, but we need to build assets. So we cannot just sign 27 or 30 plus players just for one season, because that doesn't work this way.
And then you've got your manager that you feel fits with that plan and is on board with bringing the young players through.
Yes.
And now the hope for next season, I guess, is that now he's had his time to bed in, he'll get a
he's
window.
told you what he needs.
Yeah, we discussed, we sat down, we go over the profile, the type of profile. So he's not coming with the name of the player, but he gave the profile of the player. Yes, per position.
What he's looking for in that position.
Yes,
So
exactly.
he's giving you I want an attacking left back.
So
who
we took him also
or I want a
because
defensive wing back, or I want.
we took him also because he fits with what we want to do as a club.
Yeah.
So it's a collective discussion. And
Is he flexible on his systems?
Yes, he is. You have to adapt. So championship is difficult. You want to play a certain way of football, but some games you have to adapt. So if you go back to our game yesterday against Sunderland, first half a bit more attacking, high press. Second half a bit more sat down and try to get the results. So you have to adapt as a head coach. You've got your ideas, you've got your principle that you want to play with, but at one point you've got the players available, you've got injuries. So how can you get the best of your players? But keep in mind that that's how he wants to play football. But we're here to support him, not to be a dictator and tell him what he has to do. You want to give him the responsibility, and he's going to be accountable for his job. We're here to make sure we create the right environment for the players that's coming up, or the young players, and at the club make sure we can play our best.
Mm-hmm. So is Blackburn's, but this is a difficult question, but is Blackburn's budget going to increase next year or stay the same?
I think it will stay the same. We're going to try to fight to get a bit more, but as I said, it's been like this for a few years now. The owners are backing the club with the money they put, and our job, when I signed, my job was to make sure we stick with the plan. So I'm not now knocking at the door and I say I want 20 million, because that's not what I signed for a year ago. So I know what's my budget, and I know what I have to do to make sure to get the best of this budget, and we're already working on it, and I'm confident that we'll have a better squad next season.
Yeah. I've got to say as well, just from a fan's point of view, it's just really difficult. And again, I go back to the point of we don't understand the business side of it, because the basic side that I see of it is they buy a club that's in the Premier League and it's got this incredible history. And in the tenure of them owning the club just seems to go down.
What's down? Because we're in championship fighting for playoff. I'm not sure it's that down.
Okay.
Last few seasons, except last season when we fight for relegation, but last few seasons we're fighting for playoff. Even with our budget, Sunderland is doing this with a tiny budget. I think there's a possibility to do it. If you do it, if we've got an alignment, all the club, I think there's a possibility.
Alignment, I think, is a really good word.
Alignment is key, from the board to my position, to the head coach, to the players and the academy. If we all know where we're going, and the fans, the fans. So we have to communicate our plan to the fans. It's going to be the.
If you get in the playoffs, you got to do it.
Yeah, of course.
You got to win. You got to win it. If you get in the playoffs year after, you got to win it. If you don't do that, you won't get there again.
Yeah. Let's round up the Blackburn chat. I've just kind of got two more questions.
That's fine.
And again, appreciate your honesty on it. Just going back to the kind of, I liked it when you talked about alignment, when you said alignment between, and you were talking about the clubs.
Yes.
You can get all of that in a line and you can get all of them running, but unless the connection with the fans comes back to the club,
Yes.
it feels like you're not going to be able to achieve what you want to achieve. You need the fans back on
Yes.
side. And we touched on it. The Venky's, the fans, the alignment of the club. How do you bring everybody in? And I know it's a very big question, not
Which
just
is.
for you. How do you bring it back? Because you need the fans back on side.
I believe we need to communicate probably a better way to express our project and to make them understand that that's the project. So then you don't build any expectation. If you are there, you're not investing money, as we mentioned. It's because
Don't
we know
lie to
our
them.
plan.
Don't lie to them.
No, that's the plan.
Don't say nothing. Say nothing in the end, but don't lie to them because they work it out very, very quickly. They know what's happening there.
But that's why
You know
if
what I
you
mean?
communicate, if you
Yes.
honest in your communication, then they understand. You can agree or disagree with that, but you understand the plan. So that I believe if we communicate a better way with them, they will be on board, or they will be less attracted by the fact singing Venky's out or those kind of words. Because even now when the team is performing, they're not supporting the team as they should do. And that's sometimes when I'm in the stand, I feel it because the team is doing their best on the pitch. So
What's
don't
your
waste your
average
energy.
gate, if you don't mind, man? Do you know what your average gate is?
Yeah, we all run like 12, 13, I would say, per game. Used to be higher.
Are they
than
thinking
this.
of putting the season tickets up this year?
Yeah, but I don't think it's the case because the season ticket now is back to the price we were before COVID time.
Oh, good.
And we're still like one of the lowest
Good.
in the league.
That's really good.
Thank you. So in terms of
I've got
next season-
just a question. No, it's not a question. It's just an overview because you just into the job and you're learning all the time. And you tell me before we started about how much you'd done before they offered you the job, your work experience and stuff like that. So if you get the opportunity that might help you and the football club, because I presume you're ambitious and you want to stay at Blackburn, of course, but everybody, if they haven't got an ambition, won't succeed. But have you ever thought if you get the opportunity to try and spend some time at Brighton and Bournemouth and Brentford, who are similar base to
Yes,
Blackburn?
that's a good things to do.
You know what I mean?
Just
Will
go
they
around and-
accept you in? Will they help you?
I think so.
Might they do that? Because we used, in my time, we've always done a lot of, I've always sent, not that I did much if I could because I was too busy, but sent a lot of other people to search other areas of sport, but particularly on, look at the success of Fulham's another one. You look at the success and how they're sustaining it. Like we did at Bolton, like Blackburn, like Burnley did for a long time. You know what I mean? So that if they can help, you might get a better perspective of what you might come and introduce to Blackburn to help them.
Yeah, it would be great. Yeah,
back in the Premier League.
that's something we
And
have
I'm
to
sure
do, just to visit
they'll
different
welcome
clubs.
you in. I know Thomas Frank is great at it. Like I mean, and I spoke to. I haven't been down to see Brentford, but you know, might be an idea for you.
It is a good idea.
Blackburn. Thanks for
Next
coming.
season. Next season for Blackburn, what is the aim? What is the short-term aim for next season? You're close this year, close to the playoffs.
Close. So we try to be better every season. So now we close, we'll see where we land at the end of the season, then see what we can do next season to improve our performance and improve our results. So yeah, that's the plan, is to finish higher. That's what we're going to do this season.
Good luck. And also, I mean, it happen if the Venky's happen to be watching this podcast because they heard that you're on it. I think come and watch your club. Maybe come and sit down with some of the fans, have conversations with the fans, come and watch the club. I feel like that's the most basic thing the fans would respond to if the owners were in the stands watching even just one game. Last question for you. 3 points. Are they more enjoyable when you're on the pitch as a player or when you're on the pitch or when you're on the stands as part of the leadership team?
On the
Oh my God. Like, one thing I've got to say, right, that is really, what's that? I'm not sure what this term, but the fact that he's released as a support thing, I want to say this, if you're listening, Rudy Gestede, I very much doubt you probably are, but if you are, all of the things that people have supported this team through thick and thin. Last season, for example, you know, mate, honestly, going on to Leicester final of the season, not knowing we're going to be in League One or we're going to be in the Championship, we support them different ways. He's so arrogant. He actually annoys me. I just make myself cry.
It is a phenomenal own goal, like to have been through whatever the past few weeks has been as a firestorm, probably for them on a PR perspective. And
he's pinning results on the fans. He's pinning that bad run and the lack of it in the playoffs on the fans. He's pinning it on the fans.
It's kind of that, Glen, but is it not also an indictment of the kind of mentality, the caliber of mind that has experienced what they've experienced in recent times and decided that rather than build bridges, he's going to try and burn them? Like he's not enjoyed his experience recently, so he's decided that his opportunity to speak in a semi-relaxed environment publicly is like he's going to use that opportunity to just kind of kick a boot in.
He's conditioned that way. He's talking to, we've seen Yasir go all over the internet and talk about it's stay away fans. So it's blaming people. There's an agenda. We've seen Zahel Pasha go on saying it's just one group of supporters. We've heard Rudy Gestede say the core supporters are behind us. What does the core supporters mean? These behaviours internally, this isn't one person. These behaviours internally are contagious, and the beginning to believe their own tribe. Supporters standing up, doing podcasts like we are doing tonight, trying to galvanise supporters, trying to get supporters' hopes up, and trying to stand up for what we believe in, that we want a well-run club that runs through our blood. That is supporting your football team, because you're trying to protect it. You're trying to protect it so that's here for years to come. You're not. We've got full-time jobs. Everybody in this call's got a full-time job. We're doing it because we love and we're concerned about the club. And if they can't see that at Ewood Park, they haven't got a long-term future, because long when they're gone, we'll still be here.
I have nothing to add. What do you mean by down? After she told him they'd gone from Premier League club to a Championship team, a struggling Championship team, and he asked, "What do you mean by down?" That's done me.
He's just. They don't read the room. I don't think they actually have a clue on what garbage he's actually speaking.
They don't understand what our issues is. They're talking about performance and on the field and results, and they always link it back to how, like, if it was just about results, we would support the team when we were winning. But the fact that he mentioned that there are still chants like that where people are getting angry even when the team's still winning just contradicts the fact that he said that. That
he's, like I said, it's full of try. You went to Sunderland, a few days. Rob, I'm sure you didn't go to Sunderland because you didn't want the team to win. You invested your time. I think you put a coach on as well to get other supporters to the game. So it wasn't about you going. You got other people to go to the game. Supporting the football club, trying to get supporters to go and get us 3 points, going doing your thing on a Saturday, watching the football, coming back after a couple of drinks, absolutely delighted that you've got 3 points. Getting up the following morning, springing your step, but not putting to one side that we've not got a well-run club, because that's not something that's going away. The results, we all want the team to win. If they win every single game, absolutely fantastic. But this is not about just winning a few football matches. This is about all the empty seats and all the other things that surround the football club, and having some certainty that we're not just going to be 3,000 adult season tickets next season, 2,000 the season after, and then shutting 3 stands the season after that. This at this moment in time, when are we going to start seeing the curve going upwards? And and that's what, as a coalition and the people getting involved, that's where people's brains are at the moment. How do we stop the curve going down and start getting the curve going forward? And how do you work hand in hand with this football club to rebuild an 150-year organisation, which everybody's proud of, who supports the club?
100%. And it's like, I don't know about anyone else in here, but I get fans with the club saying, "Oh, you got bad attendance." Well, look at 15 years below that, and I think even like Allardyce looked shocked when he asked him, what's average attendance now, and I think he genuinely looked shocked and thought like, "Oh my god," because I don't know what it was, but I remember it like talking 2005. Like I remember when we played Chelsea and we won, and everywhere was absolutely bouncing. It was full. You know what I mean? And it's frustrating that these people cannot see those other reasons, but instead they just blame the supporters rather than actually looking. There's actually issues which you just want to be like a little bit of a burrow and stick your head under the sand and forget that we even exist. And if other people who come to the conclusion don't do anything, we won't have a club. It's that simple. And like you pointed out, Glenn, these issues happen every damn season, and sometimes supporters, you get to start thinking of things going right and you forget about them. But these issues are not going to go away. Sorry for my rant.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think a lot of us expected us to be in a relegation fight this season, to be on the cusp of the playoffs with 2 games to go, and that is a minor. It's in spite of the administration, not because of the administration. It's in spite of it. They've sort of admitted they didn't even expect to be near the playoffs. If we could stop up, it was good. That's testament to how well John Eustace was doing and how hard these players that we love and the work that they've put in. And they're worn out. They've put so much work in this season. Them lads are worn out. Because when they needed their help and the right acquisitions and the right purchases, it wasn't there. I'm proud of what the players have done this season, and from a coaching perspective, I'm actually really proud of what they've all done. From a playing perspective, disappointed that results have dropped off. But this isn't about what's going on that pitch and the efforts the lads have put it in. This is about chances behind the scenes, embedding themselves into our football club who haven't actually got a clue what they're doing. And I don't care what they're trying to sell me at the moment. I just ain't buying it. I ain't buying it. We want professionals running our football club.
I think that's perfectly summed up and a good place to end it. My bum's gone numb. Good stuff,
It was a long
guys.
one, that. I don't know how many tuned in, Rob.
I think there was like 25 all the way through, but I'm sure like concurrent viewers like watching all the way through, which is mad that people.
Are we off live now? Or
No, we're still streaming. No. Just gonna say bye. Yeah, so everyone that watched us, everyone that put in a live chat, and everyone that's tweeted us along the way, thank you very much for your support. Cheers to Jack, Katie, and Glenn for joining us. We might do it again. Potentially not as long, and hopefully it's not as drawny video as Rudy Gestede. Might be something. Maybe it might be us speaking as to Rudy Gestede next time. But cheers for joining us, and we'll speak to you all very shortly. Be Rory's rants next. Rory's rants.